going to start in 5 seconds. No, just joking. We're going now. Welcome to episode 23 of Heresy Hammer. This is a particularly spicy episode today, as it will be largely concentrating on Rob and Lee's excursion to Manchester to visit the global mecca of Warhammer conventions, Warhammer Fest 2023. But first, we need to introduce ourselves. My name is John. I'm joined by my delicious co-hosts, Rob Medwell at Medas Miniatures.
Hello there.
I'm joined by Lee, who I've not seen for such a long time. We have been like ships in the night on these last few episodes, Lee. So Lee is at Death in the Shadows.
Hello, hello.
Hello. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, I am D6_miniatures. So we've got a fair bit to get through today. There is a bit of news, but we're going to largely kind of concentrate on our thoughts and feelings from Warhammer Fest, and obviously we'll talk about later about some of the reveals and what we kind of think about the kind of the future of Heresy from looking at the roadmap and the like. The other big news since we last recorded, I think, was the release of the Militia PDF. Correct?
Of course, yes, that is correct.
But
yeah.
That's such a big sort of topic. We're going to cover that largely in a kind of its own dedicated episode, and we'll get some militia expertise on to give us some assistance there. However, there's one piece of admin that we need to do straight away, and that is talk about all of the cool things that have been sent in on Instagram using the hashtag Heresy Hammer.
Absolutely.
So, as you know by now, if you would like us to kind of discuss your excellent hobby, just post on Instagram and hashtag Heresy Hammer. We've got several thousands, maybe approaching 10,000 things now to get through. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands. So if we haven't got to your miniature yet, don't worry. We probably will get to it at some point, but there is an awful lot to go through. Rob, top left, Painting Mayhem.
Yeah, I mean, always such an amazing work, and I hadn't actually clocked who it was until I kind of was creating the PowerPoint. But I loved the scene that was created, the Sister of Silence kind of capturing this unsanctioned psyker, and then with your ship awaits. I thought that was absolutely brilliant, really cool scene, and all non-metallic, not all non-metallic metal. So yeah, a fantastic piece from this guy. He is so talented.
Yeah, annoyingly talented, isn't it? Just a nice guy as well, Lee. If you ever get a chance to meet Lee at an event, go up and have a little look at his stuff. It'll be absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Lee, do you want to talk us through Forge World Odessa Binaries scene here? I believe, if I remember correctly, he sent in the Death Guard army that I absolutely loved a few episodes ago. So I think he's clearly been a busy old boy.
Okay, yeah, it's I'm loving. We don't see many bright Mechanicum, do we? I'm liking the bright red and yellow.
Mm-hmm.
Is a very sexy color scheme, and we don't see many of that night. I don't even know what it's called, to be honest with you.
Is it Asterius or something like that?
Asterius, yeah, Castus Asterius, I think it is.
I don't think I've ever seen one in the flesh.
I haven't either. No, not at an event.
I have seen one, but I've never played against it. So I believe it's got 4 mega conversion beamers. And knowing what we know about conversion beamers,
they must be good.
Must be good.
Yeah, this is awesome, isn't it? I keep looking at Mechanicum stuff and telling myself to fuck off because I've still got boxes and boxes of Iron Warriors stuff to paint.
Yeah, you still got 3 word bearers left to paint.
But yeah, this is awesome.
It's a great job. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, very minimal weathering as well, but it kind of doesn't actually detract from the model, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the picture on the right because I'm going to let Rob and let you chat about the Painting Smithies take on the Phoenician.
Yeah, so this just really stood out to me. I thought it was absolutely superb. It looks like it's a mixture of true metallics and non-metallic metals. I think the face is absolutely brilliant. And the sword, though, I think is the really defining piece. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. Like that mixture of, because you're like, oh well, you could have like a glow at the bottom and it being true metallic for the rest of it. But I just think that the whole kind of piece just works fantastically. Also, I will mention here, as a side note for Instagram users, is that the painting smithy has taken this photo, I think, at a 4:5 ratio, and that's slightly better for Instagram because it fills up people's phones. So if you're doing photos, try and do it at that ratio rather than a 1:1 ratio because it's slightly smaller. So if you want your work to be seen on Instagram, try a 4:5 rather than a 1:1. So the Victor Pesch painting looks great, and it looks big against the painting speed one, but I've enlarged it to be able to see it. So 1:1 doesn't just have to be the Instagram ratio. So make sure you guys are doing it at 4:5 because people will notice your work.
Well, you learn something new every day, don't you? If you want to learn some more stuff, why don't you go and join Robert on one of his painting courses?
Yes,
details
exactly right.
On Instagram at Meadows Miniatures.
Exactly right.
I'll tell you all about how to paint them and then make sure people know that they're painted well.
Yes.
So I'm going to talk about Victor Pesch's Sons of Horus because, as you know, I've got my kind of Sons of Horus love sort of waned a tiny little bit for a little while, only because I think I had a kind of a bit of a hole in my heart from not having my Iron Warriors close to hand. But I've really got back on the Sons of Horus hype train over the last few days. I'm looking forward to the new campaign book coming out and kind of getting them on the table properly and doing some other stuff with them. I think these are cool. I mean, like really cool. I think the kind of high gorgets that they're sat into with the bare heads is a really, really nice touch. I'm assuming
Death Watch, is that one? The Death Watch.
Yeah, I think they are from the plastic Death Watch kit. Yeah, I think they are. If my memory serves, I think they're a recon squad. I don't think they're a seeker. I think they're a recon squad.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But I think they look absolutely wonderful. I think they just look properly thematic. And it's nice, those little tiny touches from a couple of different kits, I think has just worked so well. I like the subtle mix of armor marks as well. Like, you've got some of the guys with their kind of Mark III arms.
Yeah. Yeah, that's brilliant.
I think it just looks great. I think the subtle detail of that kind of one single kind of green pad or red pad, I think just works so nice against the black.
What's he done with the bolters though? So I don't recall those bolters.
Yeah, they're the
he's converted.
Yeah.
No, they're not. They're the Forge Rod ones.
Yeah, they're the old combi bolter, I think.
Yeah. But there are two barrels on those.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
I think one of them. So I think it was a case. Is it the Headhunter kit? So you
something like that,
the Kraken round loaded into one, and then the standard bolter loaded into the other. I believe is the.
I know this because I've got a load of them somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure it's the Headhunter Leviathan kit. Could be wrong, but I'm going to
like
stick my neck out and say I'm not wrong. And no doubt someone in the comments will tell me that I am wrong.
And then we'll just delete those comments.
Yeah, obviously, of course. Censorship. I think the best thing about using these torsos is that you get the bandoliers and the boot pouches. That just really kind of lends itself to why the recons are seekers, right? I think that's
these look fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. Yeah, it's good. Good background.
What have we got next, Lee? Edge Thomas is painting some Blood Angels.
Now the photo doesn't do this justice because he has done chipping and underlined every single chip.
You can see it.
You can just make it out.
But so loads of intricate work. So Edge Thomas needs to get himself a
light box
because this does not represent the amazing work that he's done on them. They look so good. Yeah, they're brilliant.
What do you think, Rob, about the Reavers in the middle?
Well, I actually really love that mark of jump pack. Now I don't know if it's the jump pack is, or it's it's based on the Night Lords older 40k
Night Raptor,
Night Raptors ones. And I quite like them when they're in dynamic poses on that. They are clearly bigger. And I think they're 3D printed, but I think they look great. The combination of red and black, really just that Catch and Reaver vibe, I think is just so sexy. And then you've got great contrast, so super light bases against the darkness of the miniatures. What's not to love, right? Yeah, it's brilliant.
And non-spoiler alert, you might be seeing slightly more of that style of jump pack later on in the show and in your lives.
Excellent.
Talking about these are some relatively bright Mechanicum as well from Tangential Miniatures. Again, a completely different style to what kind of you often see on Mechanicum. I think these are absolutely fantastic. I think that face mask that the Thalaxi have is just so iconic, and you can do so many things with them just to really kind of sell that idea of this kind of really tortured brain in a jar put inside a mechanical body. I think he's done a really, really, really good job there. I don't think, like, I think I've always gone for like the menacing vibe. I think this is kind of quite in a describe this kind of quite sort of overwhelming. Like it's kind of a bit like, oh my god. But
glow,
I think
a sinister glow, like just
exactly. I think these are absolutely these are top 10.
I reckon like an army of these would look really impressive on the tabletop.
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely. Yeah,
like a whole scheme of this, because I think it's so easy, particularly with like the Thalax and just the Mechanicum in general, just to be like, well, I'm gonna just airbrush a few little bits and then paint most of it silver. What you want to see, but this person's gone above and beyond. Like the fades on the shoulder pads, the really extensive transfer work as well. So a whole army of these.
The decal works really, really hot here. So
the bases are fucking awesome too.
Yeah.
Real Lost Civilization vibe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Nice work.
Cool.
Wonderful. So we're gonna get into the main part of the show a little bit earlier this week because there is an awful lot to talk about, and it's important to say that we have taken a really balanced view at this. I think that this event has been like, if you pay attention to the internet, quite divisive. And I think as well, I think what the kind of one of the main issues, I think his issues is difficult, but I'm going to say issues anyway, seems to have been is the fact that certain people have different expectations when attending events like this. And so I think what we're going to do now is just quickly talk about our experiences of previous events. Now, a lot of these have been more heresy focused, but I've obviously, as we'll come to in a minute, I've got some slightly different kind of views. And but I think it's important because you guys have attended kind of more of the weekenders than I did. So why don't you talk about kind of what the heresy community has been treated to, or the Warhammer community too?
So I mean, me and Lee have gone to these things over there because we've known each other for like over 10 years, basically. But we've gone to these things together, and we've gone to Heresy Weekenders, we've gone to Open Days, and we've gone to Games Days together as well. And we've gone kind of separately as well. So I think that what has previously always been a theme of these events is, and it might not be that they're just like Horus Heresy related, it might be mainly 40k with a bit of Horus Heresy tagged on, certainly with our experiences of the Open Days and things like that. But what has always been the case is that there has been plenty of things to do. Like you could easily spend 6 to 8 hours on a day, even if you just went one day, and your day would be full. And I think that that has always been a mark of my previous experience, which is that it's a full-on day. You got loads to do, and that includes, with me and Lee, that includes speaking to studio teams, going to a range of different seminars, being able to have the opportunity to speak to Black Library authors about their work, and seeing things like dioramas, right? And that includes like the old Games Days, Open Days, and Horus Heresy Weekenders. And one thing I will say is that I like one of the pivotal kind of like moments in my kind of like painting career was attending a seminar with our friend Stephen Lee, and it was an introduction to airbrushing by Phil, who was one of the old Forge World painters. And he basically just took you through how to use an airbrush, how to paint yellow on a tank, and how to apply transfers. And it was an hour long, and it was one of the best things like I've ever been to. And it kind of transformed my whole kind of like painting career, and is now why I do the job I do, which is a full-time painter. And those kinds of experiences, being able to speak to the teams, were really something special, and were really something to look forward to annually in the Warhammer in the Warhammer calendar. So where you've got kind of year on year experiencing those things, you expect either the standard to be made. I suppose I expect the standard to be of that caliber year on year, because that's what I've experienced, or that they get better and better. you know, that I think that's not something, especially when the ticket price like is basically the same year on year. You should be able to, with the resources that you have, be able to maintain that level of level as well. So that's my experience, and but I think the thing is, I would say, is that it's a full day. Like you can go to these things and you're busy for the whole thing, and you obviously meet new people. Like I back then, like I was just you know a
Just a
fairly
guy,
I was just a guy,
just
right?
an
I was
average
there,
guy, an
an
average
attendee.
sized guy.
Yeah, didn't have like Metas miniatures, didn't like paint kind of to like the level that I do now. I Warhammer was just basically something that I played in Cambridge and didn't really go to events at all when I started going into to these kinds of things. But even then they were fantastic. How about you, Lee? What was your kind of like experience of previous games days and things like that, or anything that you remember being like stand out?
Just to reiterate what you said, really, like, and not just Heresy. I mean, I've been to 40k open days, and they've had seminars. There was it an open day? They all blend into one, to be honest. But I remember going to one, and they had all the designers, and they had
Yeah,
like their scrapbooks there that you could just flick through, and you could see, like their concept ideas. So you could see you knew the finished model, and you could see kind of how they've come up with those ideas.
yeah,
They'd be sitting there on their tablets, just drawing stuff, and you could, if you're one of those people that doesn't like kind of talking to people, or is a bit like anxious of talking to people you don't know, you could literally just stand there and watch them just doing what they do.
yeah.
Like meeting the models designers and stuff, and they were so open to talk. I remember seeing, was it one of the first custo dreadnoughts, and the guy who painted it was there fucking telling everyone how he painted it, and he literally
Yeah,
had all the paints lined up that he used, and he was just going through showing people on a I think it was like on a paint pot, empty paint
yeah,
pot, like how he painted those models.
yeah,
And it was stuff like that it was so engaging. You could literally sit there for 20 minutes, 20, 30 if you're crowded around this dude just showing you how he painted these models.
yeah.
And it was,
And it
like,
wasn't
I mean, I
exclusive to
spent,
Heresy, right? Like these were so like and I think the important thing is it's not just like the Heresy weekenders that we went to
yeah,
were
no,
exposed at.
no,
Like I don't. Do you remember, Lee, when we met Will and he had like almost like the prototype of the Mastodon there, and he was
yeah, yeah, yeah,
basically being
yeah.
like, "Fucking hell, this thing was a nightmare to create due to the open doors," and he was talking about the problems of the hinges with the doors, and it was absolutely fascinating. You could speak to him for like half an hour, and he just had this model in front of him. And was like, "Oh, it was just a total ball ache to be able to sort of like design this thing," and that was just like, I think that was just a bog standard open day, it wasn't a
Yeah,
like.
that wasn't a Heresy thing. That was just an
No,
open.
yeah. So like our experience of all these things, that 40k Heresy, Age Sigma, or whatever it was back then. But yeah, that I suppose, yeah, that's our experience, right?
I think if you want to see how excited Rob used to get about this shit, if you go to Templars 01, is it
Yeah,
Templars
yeah, yeah. That's right.
Templars
01.
01 on YouTube, and scroll back to about 2014, I think it is, and there's a video of Rob, a very fresh-faced Rob, who's brought some fucking Forge World stuff,
Yeah.
and he's very, very excited about
And it was like
everything.
I think it was like the Mark II Command Squad or something, and I just like
Yeah,
weighed my pants, and I was just like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Like,
and you
it's
can
just
literally feel the vibe through the
yeah,
video.
Well,
Like,
see, that's what you want, isn't it? You want to come away from stuff like this enthused. Like
yeah,
this should be, regardless of if you attend in person. Obviously, now it's much easier to attend a lot of these events digitally, from the comfort of your own home, regardless of where you are in the world as well. You want to come away, and obviously Games Workshop wants you to come away really super enthused, because that's what drives interest, and that's what kind of keeps you engaged, and that's what keeps you spending money. Now, with my cynicism hat on, do you think that these events like the open days, like the weekenders, given how few attendees were capable of attending and how much
mm.
was gone on, do you think they ever made any money?
That's a good question. So I suspect that Heresy. Yeah, that's a great question actually. So I suspect they probably make them at a loss,
I
or
would
that
probably
it's
agree.
run them at loss. But I
Yeah.
suspect that the long term
Yeah.
gain is probably is probably an investment in and of itself. So the event itself is probably a loss, but then what they gain out of it in terms of publicity, and then the hype that they generate around these events is probably worth the investment, I would have thought.
Yeah, I mean that would be my experience.
I don't run unfortunately not a multi-billion.
Not yet. Not yet. Patreon.com/Heresy So I was unfortunate enough never to have attended. I was due to attend the final weekend of the Games Workshop run, but unfortunately at the time I ran quite a busy retail business, and getting weekends was super difficult. But I did many moons ago, nearly 20 years ago, actually work for Games Workshop, and at a time when the old format of Games Day existed. And I was I attended two. I attended one in a capacity of running. So it used to be a format of all of the stores, or all of the they used to group them together into like little cells. So the cell of the store might put on an activity at Forge World. Oh, not Forge World, at Games Day. And the idea being that, you might create a scene where, so for instance, we did one, I think, regarding like a huge Tyrannid versus like Ultramarines battle. Basically, you could turn up in the morning, you set everything up, and you ran a big battle, and people could kind of come in and drop in and do this, and you had all the stuff like the one that I remember most fondly was you had the battle at Big Tooth River, the Praetorians versus Orcs, and the idea would be that you'd have these big events, and you could come in and you'd have 10 or 15 staff, and you'd be like, right, you move this, roll these dice, this is what's going to happen here. You'd have obviously all the talks and seminars. You'd also have Forge World typically present at these events. I actually worked the Forge World store for one Games Day, and that was an experience, let me tell you. Right, that was an experience. But obviously
I bet it was like working at Wetherspoons on a Saturday night, wasn't it? It
was absolutely. So I remember there was a point about, so as well, it was only one day, and there was an awful, like, you couldn't realistically do everything. You had to sort of really think about prioritizing, especially if you're entering stuff like Golden Demon, because you have to go around queue, get in, do the bits and bobs. But I do remember it was about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I think it finished at about 5. And it was an announcement was made over the PA system to say that they had reduced a load of stuff at Forge World. I think they had, load of busts, like Space Marine bust and all bust, a Goblin bust, and it was just this kind of like this tsunami of nerds just spending on the stand with like just money at you.
The idea that they would do a discount on anything,
I know, unbelievable. It was, I fully appreciate this was a different time. Like, internet really didn't really exist, but at the same time, it generated so much hype, and it really was a not to be missed event. Like, I remember most of the stores near us would put on a coach, so you'd buy your ticket and your coach ticket, and you get there about 5 in the morning and drive up to, I think this was at the NIA in Birmingham. And honestly, they were just great, and I remember them so fondly. And I think that there is certainly a now, knowing what we know about the Warhammer hobby having grown so much, especially in the last sort of probably half a decade, people haven't got those memories, and people may not have those expectations. But certainly the problem is the fact that I, with my nostalgic head on, look back on those really fondly, right? So so this is kind of like our prior dealings with these kind of events. Now, shall we have a little look about so backstory? I didn't attend, Rob and Lee did. Now, the reason I didn't attend, and it's a strange one, is because it was at the I've forgotten the name of it, Manchester Central, in the middle of Manchester, Manchester, funny enough, which is a venue that my company uses for every single event, and I live a long way away, so I am there all the bloody time. The last thing I want to be doing is spending
going back there, right?
in Manchester.
And you'd only just come back off your honeymoon, really. I mean, then going
I had just come back off my honeymoon as well, and the last thing I want to do is get on a plane and go to Manchester for a weekend, if I'm being honest, knowing that I actually have to go up and get on a plane and go to Manchester for a week next week. So
it's good, I think, to have a balance on the team as well, with people going and then people seeing it from a distance, because it gives you
absolutely. And that's what we'll come to. It costs a fucking fortune, and we haven't got enough money to be able to do it for all 3 of us. So okay, so this is what was sold. So I will quickly read this verbatim. This is the
so this is from October. So October 2022.
Yeah. So
yeah. So this is
get ready for the Warhammer experience of a lifetime. Safe to say, I think they might have achieved that. Warhammer Fest 2023 is coming to the UK for a massive 3-day event from the 29th of April next year. Do you think potentially there's a kind of a subtext there that maybe it's going to be going elsewhere around the globe? What do you reckon?
Possibly, yeah. I suppose there might be. I haven't really kind of clocked that bit, but yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
Forget what you know about Warhammer Fest of yore. Again.
Yeah.
Freudian. 2023's event will be the largest, most incredible celebration of the Warhammer hobby the world has ever seen, taking place at the 10,000 capacity Manchester Central venue. This unmissable event will immerse you in the Warhammer universe with fun, interactive experiences while you catch huge new reveals and enjoy live entertainment in an 800-seat auditorium.
Yeah, so I think for me, the pivotal, the hard sell that they've done there is that this will be the largest, most incredible celebration of Warhammer hobby the world has ever seen. I think that's a big statement.
That's a big statement, right? Big statement.
And then can they fulfill that statement considering our prior experiences of everything that we've kind of.
So a little birdie. In fact, not a little bit. I think it's widely actually known, to be honest with you, that there is a UK events team that exists for Games Workshop that puts on a lot of the events that are focused domestically, so just at the kind of UK market. Because I think, let's be honest with you, this wasn't just focused at the UK. This was, we knew a lot of people that flew in from Europe, from the continental United States, etc., to kind of come over.
Yeah.
But this was actually organised by the Games Workshop's global events team, which is based in the US.
Right.
So this was kind of almost organised remotely as opposed to domestically. So I think it's really important to kind of keep that context as well.
Yeah, okay, that's really interesting. Why did they make the decision to get the US team to do it?
I think it's more of a case of it's a global large scale event, and therefore they have a team of people that do that. So when we talk about things like we know that Games Workshop's got a very strong line in with Adepticon now as well, and they may not necessarily be directly involved, but have very close tie-ins with some of the larger conventions. Let's be honest, what we know about the US market, they tend to do conventions pretty well, right? Not just within our sphere, but kind of generally. The conventions is the thing that they're pretty shit hot at. They're pretty good at taking pretty much anything mundane and be able to put kind of quite an interesting spin on it. Sometimes it can be a little bit tacky. I think it's not fair to unfair to say, but typically they are good at it. So I don't necessarily have too much beef with that decision, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, interesting. Okay.
So why did you go? So the reason that you went was, this is quite a nice question. This is what we were promised, but why did you two decide to go?
Do you want to go, Lee? Do you want to start us off?
I guess for me, if I'd actually read this bit, maybe I'd have thought twice, because fucking forget what you know about Warhammer Fest of yore. I mean, I was purely thinking of what I'd been to previously and how good some of them have been.
Yeah.
That, because it's just a chance to go somewhere, and well, what it's previously been is a chance to go somewhere, see the thing we invest a lot of time and money into, and just have a weekend of getting absolutely balls deep into it. Like, you are completely immersed in that world.
That's what you want, right?
By people who all play the hobby. Previously you're talking to the people that make that game, or you're listening to presentations or whatever. People, I mean, I've sat through 40k presentations where the rules writers are talking about how they come up with ideas and this and that. And I mean, I don't play 40k, but it's still fascinating just to hear the process. So I was coming from that place when I was thinking about what this was going to be. And obviously what we'll get into is this wasn't what it used to be. But yeah, that was it for me. I was just kind of excited to spend a weekend
with Rob.
Showing around. I would echo much of what Lee's said there. So I think that despite the fact it said Warhammer Fest of yore, it's talking about the biggest Warhammer hobby kind of event there's ever been, right? So I think that number one, exactly as Lee said, I had the expectation with a £40 ticket that there would be studio team there. There would be heavy metal painters there. Some representation from the Forge World team. I'm. We'll come to this in a bit, but I'm amazed that I expected Black Library in some form, shape, or form to be in representation. Mental, right? And exactly as Lee said, it's a chance to get away. It's a mini holiday, so a holiday break, isn't it? Weekend away to enjoy the hobby you love. And I think the important thing is, and Lee didn't mention this, and I think this is the same for me. Like, we expect some reveals, but we're not just going for reveals, right? And I think that if we dilute this, people into being like, oh, well, you just wanted to see lots of models. It's not about that. Like, of course we expect to see some new models, but that is less about it for us. And it also gave us an opportunity to game. I think from our perspective, from a Heresy Hammer point of view, we kind of want to send at least one member of the team to these kind of events, because we want somebody, a reporter on the ground, to be like, what was it like to be there? So rather than just being, creating a show about the
we don't necessarily want like third-hand information.
That's exactly right. So I suppose that from our Patreons and our subscribers, the people who watch the show, we want to be able to give people first-hand experience. So it's always likely that one of us will always go to, at least one of us will go to like the open days and things like that, so we can give an adulterated view of kind of like what we saw, I think, from our perspective. So there are multi reasons why we'd go, but I certainly think when me and Lee drove up, we were excited about it. I think that's the way I would describe it. And excited about the game, excited about being there, excited about the things that we see.
I mean, we were kind of chatting. Sorry, mate.
Yes. I was just going to say as well, it's important. Oh, for fuck's sake. No, it's important. What?
I said you go.
It's important to say as well that you'd both bought a gaming ticket as well as a weekend attendance ticket as well, right? So you wanted to go and play Heresy at the largest Warhammer event ever held in the world.
Yeah, well, and I'm speaking for Lee here, but what I expected was that we would play on Saturday, and then on the Sunday we would be able to have more of a kind of like a walk around and be able to kind of imbue the Fest vibe. That was kind of what
and see all the Golden Demon stuff and have a chat,
exactly
see people you've not seen for a while, and kind of catch up with people, right?
Yeah, cool. Exactly right. That's
and obviously we also had we didn't know it at the time, but we had the reveals for the Heresy scheduled on the Sunday as well. So. That plan was a good one.
Yeah, that was it.
Cool. Right, let's move on.
And I have to say, just one thing quickly, just on this little bit here. Like, with hindsight, you read this and alarm bells are ringing. You've got a 10,000 capacity Manchester Central.
Yeah.
You've got an auditorium in which they're doing the reveals.
By the way,
800 people.
I know that you cannot get 10,000 people into that venue.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, however many people
I go up there with occasionally there'll be times I'll be there with 1,200 people and it feels full.
Yeah. I can definitely see that. But Lee's right. You're absolutely right.
It doesn't take numbers to work out those numbers don't work.
Yeah.
If every single person who's going there who has a ticket wants to get into that auditorium, it's not going to happen. And they've had this before at events, and we had this at Horus Heresy Weekender.
Yeah.
To the point that they had to start doing talks twice because people were getting so fucked off that they brought a ticket and then they were told, the reason you've come here, you can't come in and see it because there's not enough room.
Yeah.
So it's not like this hasn't happened before. And it's just fucking mind blowing.
So I think, we'll come to the screens in a bit. But yes, you're right. Yeah.
So the costs. So as we know, this is not a cheap hobby. Both of you took thousands of pounds worth of miniatures with you.
Correct. Yeah.
That you've invested, in Lee's case, a decade painting.
15 years.
Yeah. So we're going to quickly break down the costs for people to give an idea as to how much it costs to attend the event. So the weekend ticket was £40, correct? That got you into the event for the weekend.
That's a 3-day pass. That.
Yeah,
cool. Which isn't a bad price. 40 quid for 3 days.
Yeah, I think that's not that on the surface, not a bad value at all, right? Yep. So to play on the Saturday, it costs you an additional £25.
Yeah,
correct. Yep.
Again, still don't think a 1 day event at the home of Warhammer, it's cost you 40 quid basically when you break down the 3 day pass. Travel, fuel is expensive these days. The irony is that I can fly from 5 minutes away from my house to Manchester for 35 quid.
Yeah. Irony about
in 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Food and drink. Now, I don't think either of you drink a lot, but I've seen Rob eat, and it is fucking mind blowing the amount of stuff you can put away. So
well, and that was just like that was lunch and dinners, right? Like maybe
one
snacks.
day.
Yeah. So and you're going to a city, you're probably just going to stumble across the first place that you go to.
Yep, absolutely.
Except that we'll talk about food in a bit. The food was great. All our meals were one of the highlights. But it's not cheap when you go out to a city for a weekend tea.
And you didn't stay in Manchester, did you? You stayed in...
No, we stayed about 10 minutes outside of Manchester, maybe 15. Really lovely Marriott hotel. Really would recommend if they do another fest going there. We'll show you the pictures of the venue in a bit. But it was 2 nights. We shared a room, not a bed, I hasten to add, but we both had queen size or double beds, I think. So it wasn't there weren't 2 singles. It was a luxury sort of 4-star hotel. It was really nice, really lush.
Beautiful. So in total, it's cost you 800 quid.
Yes, for 2 of us to go for a day, basically. I mean, we stay for 2 nights, but essentially to go to Warhammer Fest for a day, it costs us 800 quid. Yeah. Now, of course, there's going to be people who can be like, oh, well, you could have just got a Tesco meal deal. You could have got a cheaper hotel. I would challenge somebody to find a cheaper hotel than the one we found. There are, of course, things that you can save money on, but it's a pricey weekend if you do it on average, right? So, yeah,
for sure. Rightio. So this is a categorization of the types of people who are going to attend this event, right? So you've got the average attendee, you've got the armchair hobbyist, the guy or girl or boy or lady or non-binary, the full gamut of people who are really involved in this hobby, much like we are. I think we've probably got more of a kind of a vested interest in some areas. The kind of we are a niche of our very own, but typically there are millions and millions and millions of people who invest money in Games Workshop's miniatures range, regardless of what game they play. And they will probably fall into this average attendee category, someone who just wants to go and get their hobby horn on, maybe he's not been to, doesn't necessarily doesn't necessarily go to events per se, but just wants to go out and kind of get kind of a real kind of buzz on for the hobby, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But this is going to be like 95% of attendees, right? And this is their core group of people who keep the business running and keep it going, and they are the people that you need to impress most. As far as I'm concerned, the average attendee, and there are going to be overlaps in all these things. They are the people that you want to impress the most, I think. From my perspective.
I think also as well, I think these are the group that is prepared to suffer the most.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. To
put up with things, right? You've then got the gamer who's probably largely going to play games, either because they want to win a tournament or because it's a different place to play, or because we can go to Warhammer Fest and play.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd put me and Lee within the average attendee and gamer kind of
I think that's fair.
Yeah, and that's where we headed with our kind of in this quadrant. We sit between those two, I think. And the gaming, I hadn't realised quite how many people would be gaming. There were. Just for the Heresy, there were about 70 people, and so there must be well over 200 for Warhammer 40k. It was there was half of the hall was just dedicated to gaming, and they made the right choice by gaming, I think. But I didn't quite understand the scale of the gaming be on offer.
But that's pretty good, right? Let's be honest,
Yeah.
it is a game at the end of the day, largely. It's a hobby, but I mean, it is based around a game. And the fact they've dedicated so much of that space to gaming, when, let's be honest, gaming takes up room that they could be filling with more bodies. So I think
that is a good point. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you could have more
if we were
stuff.
talking about this purely from a money, like a cash grab, I don't think the decision would have necessarily been made to have so many people playing the game. So I think that's something we need to mention.
Literally half the venue was given over to the tournament. It was
brilliant, fantastic. I think that's a great shout. Right?
Yeah.
We've then got Golden Demon. Now, Golden Demon has really become in the last 4 or 5 years something. I mean, you could no doubt run a standalone
event, right?
Golden Demon event on its own, and it'd be full.
Yeah, 100%, John. If
Tell
you
you
see...
what, I attended. I think it was it would have been 2019. James from C Studios ran the Iron Skull event in London.
Exactly, and that was just a painting competition, wasn't it? Exactly what I was going to say.
Competition. Yeah, really, really good. Which was a shame when that couldn't come back, because I thought genuinely, especially for first event as well, I thought they did a really, really good job. So I just want to kind of shout out that event, because I thought it was excellent.
Yeah.
But yeah, you might, and there were people coming from like all over the world to kind of pit their wits against the best painters, but also against themselves, right? And I think that there's an expectation that there's only 30 trophies to take home, but just like getting that little green, not wanting to, I'm lucky enough to have won some finalist pins in my time, and coming back and finding in that cabinet with that little green sticker on it, that little blue sticker on it, is just like makes you feel like
big deal, right? Yeah,
like on top of the world. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But typically, I tend to find that the Golden Demon entrant probably crosses over in the Venn diagram more with the next category, which is the content creator.
Yeah.
So the content creator category is probably the least attended in terms of the physical number of people that were there as content creators, but let's be honest, have the biggest reach of people in terms of the ability to spread the word.
Yeah, that's a good point. They have a disproportionate amount of power to be able to
they make the most noise, right? And a lot of the feedback but a lot of the things that you'll have seen would have been from people who were invited to the event, and who's actually, in some cases, their entire job will revolve around this, but a lot of them will make a good sort of second income from creating content.
Yeah.
Much like we are. I mean, we're not making a good second income at all, but at the same time, we are still creating content. But I don't think we kind of fall in. I don't necessarily believe that we fall into that content creator vibe per se.
No, I would.
Not in the traditional sense, anyway.
No, one thing I would say about the content creators is, before we went, and bear in mind this is all like the before kind of element we're talking about, I had assumed that Games Workshop had paid for the tickets for many of these content creators. That afterwards, after doing a bit of kind of asking a few of them, it seems that wasn't the case. So content creators needed to pay for their own tickets, but and this wasn't like sold as a thing, but we'll talk about it later as well. But the content creators got 2 hours on the Sunday evening after everyone had gone home to be able to explore the entire venue with no queues. They just they could play whatever games they wanted. They could go see the Golden Demon cabinets. They could go to the shop. Etc. etc. That is what I've been told by one of the influencers, the content creators. So they pay for their ticket, but they also got access to things that the other 3 elements did not get access to. And I think
interesting, right? Because I believe I believe that the kind of latest, the kind of latest change to how GW interacts with the content creators came about largely because of the Heresy launch, correct? That was the first time that it seemed that they invited a lot of people over. They genuinely paid for flights, they paid for accommodation for people. Like, it was it was kind of, I guess, more traditional when you have influencers available to you and kind of on your books, for one of a better term.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I would say that. Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, as well, regardless of whatever you think about people, there is always going to be if they want to be retained in that kind of content creator sphere, there is going to be a certain amount of bias that is going to be inherently there. But like, at the same time, that's why that's why they're doing it. That's why GW do it, because you know, at the end of the day, it's a way of almost openly guerrilla marketing.
Yes, because exactly as we said before, they've got a disproportionate amount of reach compared to the average gamer. So therefore, it makes sense to target them. But I think what's really important is that that anybody watching other videos about Warhammer, any posts, you understand that the content creators that were endorsed by GW there had a different experience to the average attendee. Now, in the main, it wasn't different, but they did have a different experience. And I think that is really important to recognize. And again, it's about bias within social media, and it's important as adults, and young people that that they understand that, because I think that's really critical. If any content creators watch this and you'd like to discuss what your experience was, then put it in the comments below, because if it's not as we've said,
if you'd like to anonymously, because I will be honest with you and say we're going to talk about this more heavily later, but after the event, I asked on Instagram for people to sort of send me their feedback. And I had a much larger demographic and a much larger number of people than I really expected who kind of responded to that, including some people who I believe to be on the GW, who I don't really know, who I believe to be on the GW kind of content creator panel, whose experience was, I think they would probably say, maybe different to past events or to what they were expecting. And obviously they allowed me to feed some of that feedback back anonymously, but we'll touch on that later.
One final thing I would say about this content creator thing, and it was the same with the Heresy Open Day.
You're not bitter about it.
No,
that's
no,
the one thing to reiterate. I'm not bitter about it.
I'm not bitter. I'm better, is what I say. But the one thing I would say is that it seems to me that they have made a conscious and active decision to replace the studio staff with influencers, content creators. So that essentially what they're doing is, by inviting influencers, and it was the same at the Horus Heresy Open Day, and to some extent here, by kind of yes, they had to buy their ticket, but they've also made them stay by giving them a 2-hour session on the Sunday evening, to kind of encourage them to stay there. They are basically replacing they're almost the celebrities, where before the painters, the heavy metal team, the studio staff were the celebrities that you would go speak to. The content creators and influencers, they've now, Games Workshop have replaced them by putting in content creators. And I think that I don't know if it's an active decision made around the table, but there has been, to me, that's what it feels like. And whether you love meeting your favorite YouTubers or whether you kind of are ambivalent towards it, I think that's the decision that they've ultimately made.
Cool. Right, Lee, let's move on. So you two both played some games. So why don't you tell us about tell us about your army. Why?
Word bearers, Pride of the Legion, because I only have to paint about 20 models.
And take 20 models as well, right?
Still banging that Legion Castellax drum, I see.
I'll be honest, they weren't absolutely horrendous this weekend. So
okay, cool. Well, look forward to hearing that.
They weren't fucking horrendous. So Word bearers, Pride of the Legion, I got a Praetor in there with all the works. Praevian with the 4 Castellax with the Dark Fire and all the Flamers, and I've got a Librarian. I've got 3 Terminator squads, 1 Cataphracti, 2 Tartarus, 2 Laser Destroyers, 2 Dreadnoughts with Gravis Multi-Melter and Chain Fists, 5 Galvorback, and the ever awesome Leviathan with the Storm Cannons.
Storm Cannons. Lovely boy. And Rob, you've got a mismatch here.
Yes,
but I can also see you.
I would describe it as like the Marge Simpson of like Warhammer list, right? It's definitely those colours of Marge.
On the surface, I would say this list looks strong.
Yeah, I would say so. I think it's got its weaknesses, which I will certainly discuss in the second game. But it's got a lot of shooting, but the moment a close combat army touches it, it sort of disintegrates into dust. So I took a Legion Herald with a Legatine axe, attached him to a squad of Volmentaris, who had lots of Power Fists and Thunderhammers. Turns out Volmentaris only have weapon skill 4, so like a very, very poor choice to put like 70 points worth of upgrades on them, because they were
not as good as other
combat.
people.
For shooting. So don't upgrade your Formataris with very expensive close combat weapons. I took 2 tack squads with Vexillers, Artificer Armor, Power Fists, and they had Rhinos with Heavy Bolters to leverage some of that Ultramarines +1 BS. I painted up Telemachus for this event, sort of tried to use a new unit, and he was absolutely stonking. Really cool, like
what a weapon skill 6 dreadnought is going to be. It's going to be quite good. What a surprise!
I took 2 Sicarans with additional las cannons, and on the Imperial Fist side, I took a Master of Signal, which I haven't run before, so I was like, oh, I might take one of those in case I go against a deep striking army. That would be useful. A 6-man squad of rotor cannons, a tack squad in a Rhino, and then 2 Contemptuous Dreadnoughts with Fists and Gravis Melter, and then a Leviathan with double Cyclonic Melter Lance, and 2 Javelins with las cannons and heavy bolters. So loads of shooting, loads of strength 8 or above shooting.
I take it was 3,000 points, wasn't it?
3,000 points, yeah. 3,000 points. Cool. Yeah. So and I actually like building this list. I expected to face some tough lists at this, because from what I've seen at Warhammer world events, it's really like no. I was expecting to come across like Titans and things like that. So I kind of had geared myself up.
Did you see any other kind of lists that sort of stuck out as being particularly spicy?
There was a beautifully painted Death Guard kind of like armored list that had a multiple kind of like
I saw it. It was
in it. Yeah, it's amazing. Like we featured the bloke on Heresy Hammer before, but I think that was a strong list, and I think that the ranged firepower of that I might have struggled against. There was nothing too over the top. Like I didn't see a Titan. Was there any Titans there? I didn't see any.
I didn't see Titans. There was a Salamanders list with 10 dreadnoughts.
Like 3 Leviathan dreadnoughts, right? So there were some lists in there that were pretty spicy. There were some lists that were stronger than mine. But
so you're expecting to see some power, but there maybe wasn't quite the power there that you anticipated.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a good thing to say. It was fairly balanced, I think.
So duper, right. So the games starters.
No, the journey. We got the whole journey before we start the games. Yeah. So just say that the kind of journey. So I drove up to Leeds on Friday evening. I didn't want to go on Friday evening. I left at 2:00, and it took me 5 hours to get to Leeds because of the traffic around the M25. Got to Leeds in Cambridge, and then left kind of straight away, didn't we? Drove to the hotel. From there, took us 3 hours.
That's madness, because I was in London this weekend, and I drove from my house in Cornwall, and I left about 2:30, and I got to my in-laws in Hertfordshire about 8.
Yeah, it was
so a pretty similar time.
Yeah, so we just stopped off for a cheeky little KFC for dinner, and then got to our hotel, which I think is on the next slide. I hope it's on the next slide, which is this. So lovely Marriott hotel. I can't remember the name of it, Lee, actually.
I think it's Worsley. Was it?
Yeah,
Worsley?
That's right. Yeah, Worsley Marriott Hotel. It was like a spa, had a gym.
Stayed there. It's lovely. Yeah,
it was brilliant. The breakfast was included in the price. The breakfast was fucking amazing. And you can see Lee chowing down.
I've not had any breakfast yet, so I am feeling particularly hungry right now as well.
He's chowing down on a full English there. I went for kind of muesli and
fruit.
A bit healthy, but I could definitely recommend this. If there's another Warhammer Fest in Manchester, check this hotel out, because it was reasonably priced. Food was amazing, and the hotel itself was absolutely awesome as well. But we got a Uber we decided not to fight with people on the Saturday morning, and we got an Uber to the venue. So the Uber, I think, and we didn't put in the cost, but it was around about between £14 and £25, kind of like there and back, depending on the time that we booked it. And we rocked up to find these queues, and that
which is understandable, right? You're trying to get a lot of people into a venue at the same time, so you're going to have to queue to get in.
Absolutely.
That's life.
Nobody, like, this was perfectly reasonable, these queues. Yeah, Lee, do you want to talk about it? Because like there were different queues for different things, wasn't there?
I mean, I will say there was some confusion because I think they'd put an email out the day before, I think, or was it on the Friday?
No, it was the Friday, yeah.
And all the timings were different from what they'd previously put out, so that caused mass confusion. And then on the day, people were turning up thinking they could get in at 8, but they couldn't get in till 10, and so there was an element of confusion just because of one fucking email. But for us personally, we turned up. We were kind of like, which queue do we need to get in? And they had banners at each queue, basically saying, tournament, single day event, blah blah blah, whatever. So it was quite obvious what queue to get in, and the queues went down quite quickly. I know they've had absolute nightmares in the past because they were checking everyone's bag. The security teams were checking bags
as you do when you go into a venue.
Yeah,
especially with Manchester, right, as well.
They've had it before where they've had like 1 or 2 people checking the bags, and it's taken hours for people to get in. So for me personally, this bit ran really smoothly. There was no problems. The only thing I would say was if you look at the top picture, you can see the guys in the high vis. They were basically at desks, and there was one dude who would tell you to go to which desk. And his job, obviously, that morning was to tell you what desk to go to. And I ignored him at my peril and walked over to one of the desks because the guy at the desk had called me over. And this guy lost his fucking mind because how dare I not respect his authority? He was literally like, "Where are you going?" I was like, "That guy's just called me over." "No, the guy that tells you to go to the desk." I was like, "Tell me you're a job's worth without telling me you're a job's worth." But other than that fucking one bloke, it was fine. Like, I've heard people moaning about this. I know there was.
You've got to expect queuing to get into a venue.
And right? I know there was a bit of confusion, like I say, because they sent this email out the day before that had caused confusion. But for us personally, I don't think we were in that queue any longer than 15 minutes.
It's no time at all, isn't it?
Like, yeah, it was fine. It's
fine. Worth bearing in mind as well that this is the first time they've used this venue, and it's always you always settle into a venue after a while. So
yeah.
But the venue guys were obviously used to it. Like, it was.
Yeah, I went to the last Warhammer Fest at Coventry, and honestly, like, it was so smooth. You could clearly tell that they had, they knew what they were doing with the venue. The people at the venue knew what they were doing with the nerds, and it all went like really, really smoothly. So I think you're always going to expect a little bit of like, I don't think you can't help this.
It was fine. It was fine.
Cool, good. Queuing. We'll come on to queuing later.
Right.
So what was there to do, guys? Other than obviously you were playing games on the Saturday, what else could you have done?
Lee, you talk us through what we saw as soon as we got in, I guess.
So I mean, the one thing I will say before like we get into this, because I don't want to just be negative. Like, I had a fucking brilliant weekend. Like, I had an absolutely amazing weekend. But I had an amazing weekend because I played games.
Did you have an amazing weekend in spite of the event, not because of the event?
Yeah. So, I mean, like you go through the queues, and then they had a big kind of I don't know what you call it, like scenery stuff set up. So you have like you're in a kind of 40k trench thing or something, and that was quite cool. And then you walk through that, and then you're into the main hall, and you had this kind of large model Terminator in front, and I think the auditorium was off to the right. But what you used to get previously is a booklet telling you like timings of when everything is, a map of where everything is, and there was none of that. So you kind of, I mean, we got there fairly early, didn't we? Because we were playing games.
Yeah.
And even then, all I saw was just queues everywhere. And you're kind of like, what are these people queuing for? Don't know. What are these people queuing for?
Yeah.
Don't know. What are they over there queuing for? Don't know. Like,
Yeah.
cool. Like, so we went and checked in. But I mean, like, and we're probably doing this a bit later than a lot of other people have, so you've probably kind of already heard it. But essentially, in my
Because you got
eyes,
captured by that Orlok.
there was just fuck all to do. There was nothing. Like, you had the golden. So as you entered, you had the golden demon on your left. You had a store, not a particularly large store. They had a selection of stuff.
Bearing in mind, there is a Warhammer store in Manchester, which is excellent, really nice stuff. Like,
and this is what
you
we
could
said
have just
to
gone
each
there,
other.
right?
I think at one point people were queuing up for like hour and a half, 2 hours to buy stuff.
Was there
And
an
then
event only
said-
model available?
Yeah.
there was. Yeah.
What was it?
There was the Commissar, and then there was
Yeah.
a Age of Sigmar one. There was the
Doesn't
Commissar.
matter.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you just wanted to buy like a generic kit, you'd have been better off just walking to Warhammer Manchester, going in the shop, or fucking an independent.
Or Element Games in Stockport, 5 minutes down the road.
Yeah,
and not queuing up for an hour and a half. But then, so over to the right, there was like electronic games. There was like computer games. I mean, I have no interest in any of that. But if you're interested, then cool. But I mean, at one point, people were queuing like an hour just to have a go on some of these games. The kind of main thing that people were queuing up for was the 10th edition. Kind of, they were doing like a games test.
A demo game.
You could play a round of 40k 10th edition. And I think someone said people were queuing like 3 hours for it or something mental.
I had 3 hours is a time frame that I've been informed of, yeah.
And you kind of like, so we kind of walked past all this stuff going on, and it just looked like, honestly, and I'm trying not to be negative here, but it just looked dog shit because you had to fucking queue for everything. And it was just like, and I get it. You're at a large event. There's a lot of people. You're going to have to queue. Oh, they had the Golden Demon stuff again. Fucking good luck getting near that. But for me, like, and I've watched quite a few things of other people, mainly like bigger content creators talking about it. And they're kind of justifying it by like, oh, well, there's going to be queues because blah, 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 blah. And it's like, but if you had the people there, if you had the event staff there, if you had fucking painting demonstrations, and not just like, we're going to do one thing, like throughout the day, constant, like people to talk to, you wouldn't have these massive queues because they'd be off doing other stuff. You know what I mean?
You're diffusing people across the venue with the things.
Whereas it was literally Golden Demon, test fucking, have a go on 10th edition, or go to the shop, or play on some computer games. It was literally those 4 things, and you're queuing like between 3 to 1 hours to do that. Like the 10th edition, they had 5 tables. It's like this is meant to be the fucking grand opening of 40k 10th edition. It's here, you can come and play it. And they had 5 fucking tables.
Yeah, it was unreal.
Like, what the fuck is that? Look at the size of the venue. Like, why have you only got 5 fucking tables?
So I've got to say that I actually like, and I'm usually quite upbeat, right? And I try and keep Lee upbeat. But the more I thought about this, the more I think that Lee's being generous about the event. Because
Lee's aware of his reputation for being an absolute fucking Eeyore. So he's really desperately trying to put a positive spin on it.
We're like yin and yang, right? Like, but I actually think in this scenario, Lee is being generous. They have yet again, they failed to learn from their most basic of mistakes when it comes to designing the layout of an event. So, like, you can see here the Leviathan box set. Like, it's not on a fucking turntable. Like, basically, you've got these amazing, expensive glass cabinets, and these glass cabinets cost a fucking fortune. Like, they've probably spunked all their money on these glass cabinets, to be honest. But like, you had people either side of them, so and all around them, and it was chock-a-block. There were 3 or 4 people deep most of the time, and they weren't on spinning turntables. Like, how much is a turntable for a multi-billion-dollar company to, like, it's literally like peanuts. It's nothing. That money is nothing to people, like that would have, even that small thing would have elevated that part of it. And I think that it is where before these computer games were like a minor element at the Warhammer Fest and Games Days or Open Days or whatever. It was one of the primary attractions.
I'd say almost.
It's because it's a very. But I tell you, the reason I believe behind that is the fact that Games Workshop now makes an awful lot of very easy money by selling licenses.
Yeah.
And part of those licenses with the fact that they'll cross promote, because obviously they need to. The fact of the matter is, if they can make the licenses worth more money by making sure the stuff is successful. Selling a license, selling a service is typically much more profitable than selling a physical thing, right? So it makes 100% sense for, we've got this great IP, and they've got the best. They have got a sci-fi IP that maybe even exceeds Star Wars now in terms of the scale of it, right? And so it makes perfect sense just to keep licensing that and keep, because you've got it. It doesn't cost you anything. Just more and more possibility to do it.
I don't disagree with that, but I think that what was worrying was that basically like a quarter to in fact, like a third of what you could see was that element of it, right? And I think
it's going to be. It's going to be. They're going to start selling. 3D printing is too prevalent. They're clearly selling less miniatures.
So there's nothing I don't disagree with, but it basically is not good enough. Like, it's
I mean,
it's not good enough. No.
From our point of view, we'd obviously gone, I don't give a fuck about 10th edition 40k. Couldn't care less.
Yeah.
I want the Indomitus model, the Terminator models. Other than that, couldn't give a fuck. This was Warhammer Fest. I know like 40k is their biggest thing and they want to push that. I mean, I don't feel like they really pushed it. Like, they had one cabinet with the new models in,
which is madness.
And 5 tables, like 5 tables to play the game on. I feel like that's not pushing a game. But if you'd gone there like we'd gone there, like we play purely Heresy, they had half a cabinet with the Primarch models in. That is all you were seeing from Heresy. That is it.
Here's a question for you. Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
If playing 10th edition had been more accessible, i.e., if there had been a 20-minute wait to have a little go, would you have had a go?
Probably.
So one thing that they did do well at the open day was they had, I would say, probably about 20 to 30 tables which you could go and play on with your mates. You had to book it, but that was fine. That wasn't an issue. And they put the bare bones of the rules on the tables. Not the full rule book, just the bare bones.
This was for the Heresy Open Day.
For the Heresy, right? For the Open Day a year ago. And they basically should have done that. They should have just basically been like, we're going to put the bare bones of the 10th edition rules on people's tables. You can bring your army along and you can play it. And you can book your slot in, and for half an hour slots, you can just quickly play around. And that would have been, I think, so much better than the scenario that it was. And again, it just I disagree with Lee here. I don't. There may have been 5 tables laid out. It looked to me like there were 3 active tables though. Like, it didn't. It looked to me like there were, and as a result, the queues were 3 or 4 hours. I like, the more I thought about it, the more kind of like disappointed I've become over time with what was there. And so me and Lee also were just like, okay, well, maybe this is just like the first hall, right? Maybe there's smaller rooms with the Forge War team and the Black Library team, and it fucking wasn't. Like, there were like, that was it. You had the auditorium, the cosplaying like stuff, I guess, and me and Lee aren't really into that. Like, we know that people are into that, but it's not the thing that we're into. And I suspect like most people attending would be like fairly ambivalent towards people in cosplay. But yeah, there was a significant lack of things to do. And because of that, that's where the queues piled up. And exactly as Lee said, you want to diffuse those queues. Now, somebody told me, who shall will be nameless.
Will they remain nameless, Rob?
They will. They said that they had a lack of resources to have more stuff there. Fucking bullshit. fucking bullshit. Like, there's no way that there's like, look at this giant Terminator. Like, what? How much money was spent on this fiberglass Terminator? Like, what? Like, you know,
So I'm
like,
going to take a guess here, and I haven't spoke to anyone. I don't know anyone that works for Games Workshop or Forge World, but it seems fairly obvious to me that their events have been moved away from using other staff and is purely run by their events team. So everyone who's working there is, I would guess, part of their events team. Because John, like you said, like previous ones, every
pitch up
store throughout the country would provide like a table, or if they were doing
and send staff
games
as well to run that event.
Yeah. And I feel they've completely moved away from that, which is why they don't get the games designers in, which is why they don't have Black Library. It's why they don't have any of the rules writers there. Is I feel like they've moved it purely. You're the events team. You're going to run the events, and you're not going to have any help from anyone else. And that, to me, if that is what they're doing, and that's what it seems like they're doing to me, is their biggest mistake, because you're literally not using any of your resources. You're just having a handful of people running around like dickheads to produce a substandard event.
Look, I think we're in danger of completely destroying our balanced viewpoint, and just I think it would be a good time. We've been going for an hour and a half. Okay. I think it'd be a good time to take a little break.
Yes.
And we'll kind of refocus ourselves and reset we'll go expel some of this salt.
Good idea.
And we'll be back in a brief second after this wonderful advert. And then we will hopefully think about some good things to say. Welcome back to Heresy Hammer. I think it's important to say, just before we get cracking with part 2, that we genuinely want to try and provide some constructive feedback to either anyone who might be listening who's got any kind of influence over anything, but also people who might want to think about attending these things in the future. Because what we want is, we want there to be more really, really, really good quality events for us to go to. And we genuinely want Warhammer Fest to be the pinnacle of that, regardless of whether you're into Blood Bowl or Necromunda or Age of Sigmar or 40k Heresy, whatever it may be. We want there to be really, really top tier events that are worth investing your hard-earned time and money into. So we're going to quickly touch on the big reveal from the weekend, which was the new 10th edition 40k launch box, Leviathan, mainly because it includes a unit very, very dear to many of our hearts, which is the new Indomitus Terminators.
Woo! These were amazing. Like,
they're so good.
So good. When we got to the cabinets, after using our massive bulk to push people out of the way.
We basically went in there when they were shutting it, and they were telling us to get out, and we were basically like,
look,
no.
Have you seen the size of us? We'll be fine.
You
and what fucking army, mate?
Yeah. So, I mean, just quickly to say about that. So basically, because the tournament went on later than the venue was open, basically, if you just had a standard ticket, you kind of got kicked out at a certain time.
Yeah.
But the tournament players stayed in to keep playing their games.
Yeah.
So the GW staff said you can go to the shop, but you can't go anywhere else. Amir and Rob were like, "Yeah, cool. We'll go straight to the shop and walk straight to the Golden Demon bit."
And there were people trying to you need to leave now. We were like, we're not leaving. So
literally, they were like, "Sir, you need to leave." So yeah, we're going. Yeah, we're going now. Yeah, just sat there looking at all the models.
But like the Heavy Metal team, the Leviathan box, is so tempting to embrace. Like 40k when you see a box like that, because like
this is the thing that a point I wanted to make in the previous section was,
if
there had been more availability for you to have played the new 40k, would you have potentially played it? And would you then potentially thought, the models are sick, I'll grab a box, it's easy. When the box comes out, I might give it a little dabble. You never know. Do you think that they missed out on a lot of those potential opportunities?
So number one, yeah, if they had given us a go like for 30 minutes, because me and Lee we'll talk about it a bit, but we had loads of time in the middle of the day. If we had a chance to go, and also they were selling the Leviathan box there, because like that was also another thing.
Were they?
No, they were, if they were selling.
Oh, right, yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
So like that's another thing I would say is that like lots of these events you had early access to these things. If they had just sold like, you know, and it's like one per customer, that's it, and like you get your tickets scanned or whatever, and like I would have bought that box set and
I would
like painted that Carnifex like creature now, because it looks fucking awesome, and the Heavy Metal team has done an amazing job with it. And the way that they showed off the reveals from the Twitch stream was really, really cool.
It looks amazing. Like, it looks genuinely amazing.
In wicked, like the captain, the librarian, and the actual Indomitus models. They're chunky, they're huge,
So good.
They're brilliant, like they're perfect for Heresy. But I think that the danger you've got, one thing I would say, is that you've got two different scales, I think, now. So like we've got a Heresy scale and we've got a 40k scale, and Indomitus, like if you were to compare it next to a Cataphracti, just towers above them now. So I think that like you'd have to either, if you're fine with that, you're fine with that, it's no issue. But I think you need to accept that 40k is a different scale to Heresy now. So yeah, but we might get right. But yeah, I think that it's possible we could get new Cataphracti at some point, because we've got new Mark 3, and new Mark 3 is coming.
Oh, Robert.
Sorry, I've given a
cheeky little boy. Right, Lee, move on. So, game 1, 4 hours of game time.
Yeah.
Stretch out, relax. You've got this.
It was fucking amazing.
It was brilliant. So, it is the biggest Heresy event I have been to. I don't think I've been to a Heresy event with 70 players before. I think max around 50. I think I've been to, so it was huge, and we were in a huge hall, and the atmosphere was really positive. Like the gaming element, if you bought a gaming ticket, you had a fucking great time at Warhammer Fest, because you had something to do. And it was pretty low key. Like in terms of the games, we kind of rocked up, we checked in with Jamie, and Jamie, I've been to a couple of events that Jamie has run, not as part of Warhammer World, but I've been to like one that he hosted in this amazing like wedding barn venue. It was so romantic. It was great. And he's probably one of the nicest blokes I think I've ever met. He's not like cynical bastards like me, you, or me, Lee, and John. He's just so positive, so nice. And so we checked in. He kind of was like, okay, well, you're playing on this table, and we met our opponent, and we had plenty of time just to have a chat with our opponents, but we didn't know what mission we were playing at that point. So we kind of just walked around. People were getting their armies out because they knew which table they were playing on, and it was good to have a little peruse. And 4 hours is so long that you're able to have the flexibility to have a bit of peruse and just go, can we just take a break? I just want to have a look at what other people are doing. And I met a really, like, the bloke I was playing, Sons of Horus player. He plays different kind of game systems, plays 40k as well, but it's SSB_nerd stuff. So go follow him right now. Get your phone out, go follow him. Really nice lad, and it was great to play a game against him. But it was just a generally positive vibe, and it was just relaxed, and like we didn't get like a morning briefing. At least not one that I was part of. Like we didn't really know what we were fighting for. So it just, because of that, it was just like, let's just play some games. And that's exactly what we did. Like it was just out of the Red Book missions. They told us which map, and then which.
So it was Red Book missions.
Yep.
And terrain looks all right.
Yeah, terrain's pretty decent. Right. Yeah, I thought it was better for Heresy than it was for Age of Sigmar and for.
Oh, I've seen the Age of Sigmar tables. They looked absolutely atrocious. Jesus Christ!
I thought the Heresy terrain was because Games Workshop terrain just looks good anyway. Like and there wasn't loads of line of sight booking, but there was enough for a casual game of Heresy.
Good.
Yeah, so it was the general morning. It was just nice and relaxed. And one other thing I would say that they did absolutely right was that they had QR codes on the tables, and your QR code would take you to a website, and you could order food and drink directly to your table. and like the waiters would come and bring it.
Wow.
Like, I thought that was a fucking stroke of genius. So although I can be negative about some elements like that, like the gaming
We want
element,
to be constructive about everything.
the thought behind it was just like having QR codes and stuff delivered to your table. It just made the whole experience just so much better. And you felt like that price of that ticket allowed you to avoid the queues of like queuing for food and things like that. That was brilliant.
Cool. Right, ho. Lee?
I don't think there's any pictures from my first game.
No.
Good
pictures.
old Lee. Talk
Yeah,
about
so-
lunch then in that case.
Well, should we talk about the games? Because
Please do. Yeah, absolutely. I thought you were going to go into that. But you seem to just
So-
start talking.
So I played Custodes for my first game.
Oh, here we go.
First time I have played Custodes in this edition. And they are fucking savage. I can't remember the name of the mission. I mean, the guy I played against, he had I think he plays more 40k than 30k. He's certainly
he had a solar watch 40k army basically.
Yeah. So and the guys, he was from Edinburgh, and there was a group of guys that I guess he games with that were playing 40k, and they kept kind of stopping by and shouting abuse at him, which I particularly enjoyed.
Yeah.
But fuck me, Custodes are savage. Like he had, I'm trying to think what he had now. I mean, I still don't really understand what it all does. So he had 3 squads of dudes. I think 2 had the halberds, 1 had the swords. He had Baldor.
Shall I tell you what he had, Lee?
Yeah, go on. If you know, right.
Yeah. So he had a shield captain with Meridian blades. He had Constantine Valdor. He had a squad of Heteron guards kitted out with Meridian blades, and then 2 squads of spears, or was it a squad of spears, a squad of shields and swords?
I think there was 1 with shields.
Yeah, and then he had 2 Telemon and then a Galatas Dreadnought as well.
Yes.
And that was his 3k point. So, but he was obviously traveling light. But the one thing I would say is that all of his units, every single one, leveraged the Nemesis rule. So there was no tanks, nothing like that. It was all that if they got into combat, it was all +1 attack, +1 weapon skill,
and nearly all of my army is corrupted.
Yeah. So like, yeah.
So the mission was you had to get into your opponent's deployment zone and capture the objective. So he warned me. He said, the best thing to do with Custodes is stay away from them and shoot them. Don't get in combat. The trouble with that was the mission forced me to go into his deployment zone. I thought I was doing all right. By about I think the end of turn 2, beginning of turn 3, I destroyed both his Telemon dreadnoughts. But the thing I've discovered with Custodes, and I don't think he played it particularly, I think he could have been way more aggressive with his force. The thing I found with the Custodes is they're so tough. Like, you spend all your time shooting one thing and you kill that, but by the time you've killed that, the other thing is in your lines tearing you to pieces.
Yeah.
And the fact that I was corrupted in pretty much all my units, as soon as one of his units touched my units, he just fucking cut them to pieces.
Yeah.
And it was a really good game. I'd had fuck all sleep. I'd had 4 hours sleep on the Thursday night and about 3 hours sleep on the Friday night. So I was absolutely hanging. But it was a fucking brilliant game. Mega chilled out. There was no bullshit. He absolutely kicked my shit in, but it was just funny. And Custodes beating up word bearers seemed reasonable to me. So I was just happy to destroy his dreadnoughts, to be honest.
That's fine with it.
Yeah,
perhaps he was going a little bit easy on you, Lee. You never know.
Maybe, yeah.
Same mission for me. Played Sons of Horror. So he had a Praetor, I think, and no, he had a Librarian and a Warmonger, a squad of 11 Justarian. I've never seen such a thing in a Spartan. A squad of 5 Terminators with a Librarian in a Proteus, 2 Contemptor Dreadnoughts, and a larger sort of like 8-man squad, deep striking down with the Warmonger of just Terminators. So it's Pride of Legion. This So many points were wrapped up in that Spartan with just Aaron. I mean, you can see it on the third picture in, right? It's just like absolutely like I was like, if that unit of just Aaron got into my lines or got touched any of my vehicles, it would have been game over. He basically on turn, I think this might be in turn 1 or 2, he failed his charge with those just Aaron. He did like a 7-inch charge and he got like 5, and at that point the army just disintegrated because I was able to shoot at the just there and just whittle them down, and I kind of annihilated them, and then that was basically the 700 points kind of deleted. And I think that it's one of the things about the Pride of the Legion list is that if you go Terminator heavy, you are so slow. If you fail that charge, right, if you fail it, it's so difficult come back from it. And it's the same scenario, if you deep strike just Terminators in, and you've got to make that charge to be able to kind of like leverage the best out of that deep strike. And if you don't make it, it's just so difficult.
Oh, it's devastating. It is
I
didn't
have any augury scanners or anything. Like I just managed to whittle them down with shooting because I think again he kind of failed the charge. So the most interesting thing about that though was the Telemachus. It was definitely like interesting to see him against a normal average dread. Telemachus has hatred everything. He's got 4 attack space and
he's weapon skill 6.
Yeah, so
he's got an assault cannon.
Yeah, so he didn't like his Contemptor just didn't touch me, but it took me I think 2 turns to kill his dread. But the hatred everything is just massively useful. Weapon skill 6 and being hit 5s is just great. So really great character. 240 points, so I think he's worth the points that you pay for him.
Yeah, he seems it. He wants to be shot though, doesn't he? Let's be honest. Like,
yeah,
you don't want to try and take him on in combat.
No way. But it was a great game. He was such a nice lad. He took it in the spirit like that it was intended. But I think I lost. Yeah, I tabled him by turn 5, and I lost. I think 2 dreadnoughts.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Right. So what happened in the middle? Did you have a bit of a break between games?
Yeah. So we had a long old time, didn't we, Lee, between our next game and finishing up. So we finished up maybe like 11:30, and then our next game started like 2 o'clock. So we had a long old time, and that was fine because it gave us an opportunity to kind of go around and see things. Gave us an opportunity to go for lunch. So I think one of the things I would say about the venue where we were, I think there was like a lunch hall where you could get like a substantial lunch, but in the actual like hall, it was like a hot dog, and it was I'm not eating smashed up Dalmatian head for lunch. So we went out and we just came to like the first place, and it was a place called the Exhibition. It's a stone's throw from the convention center, and we went in. It was like a tapas place, right? It was like we had 3 kitchens. One was like Scandinavian, one was Basque, and one was Italian. And me and Lee, I don't think a big food sharer, so kind of then discovered we kind of just went in, didn't really know what to expect. And the guy was like, "You're probably going to need to get 3 or 4 dishes each." We went for like 3. I went for bread, mussels, and this lamb, and it was one of the best meals I have ever had. Like, it was fucking amazing. It was worth every single penny. And it like after a morning of gaming, it was fucking fantastic, and it was polished off with a Basque burnt cheesecake, and it was just it just made the whole weekend, like the day, just so worthwhile. It was brilliant. Yeah. Lee, do you want to talk about?
Lee tried to tell me what lamb and potatoes were, which was great.
I think, I mean, it comes back to the event, like just the amount of time we had. It was fucking brilliant. It was, I don't know whether they did it on purpose, but it just worked so well. If you're going to an event just to play games, you probably don't want to spend 10 hours there, but because the Warhammer Fest was going on in the background, it did give you a chance just to fuck off and have a look at things. Like we've kind of said, there wasn't a huge amount to look at, but it did give you a chance to kind of just pop off and have a look at something and then come back, and it just created a really relaxed vibe. And like the ability to just go off for an hour into town and get a meal and just get away from the hordes of people in the building was fucking brilliant. And yeah, I couldn't recommend this place enough. The food was insane.
Yeah. You had like a whole lamb leg or something, didn't you?
Yeah, I had a
Something else,
massive
wasn't it?
lamb thing, arancini, tiramisu.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fucking great. Yeah,
The exhibition. Go check it out because if you're at Warhammer Fest next year and it's at the same venue, go check this place out. But if we
don't
can't
go
get
there
a table,
because
yeah, if we can't get a
we won't
table,
get in.
just like you're there, we'll be fucked off. But it was amazing. Right.
Cool.
cool.
So after lunch, game 2.
Yeah, Lee, this is your pictures. This one.
So this was my game 2. Again, I can't tell you exactly what was in his list because I don't speak White Scars, but it was Krinzar. He was with a command squad of Tartarus Terminators. He had a librarian with the what the Terminator dudes in black.
Eben Keshig.
Yeah, he had a load of them. I think it was
Did he have
Vampire
20
Legion.
Eben Keshig on foot?
No, he didn't. He
Not
had
interested.
5.
Not
He had
really
5
interested
on
at
foot.
all.
He had a Squad of Cataphracti, attack squad, Spartan Land Raider, a couple of contemptors. He had 3 of the White Scar land speeder things. The
Kazargan.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Kazargan.
Yeah. And he had 4 of the Golden Keshig, is it? Keshi?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So yeah, that was pretty much his list. And I can't remember what the mission was now, but the table was
We had to. You scored at the beginning of each turn if you were sat on an objective. A line unit was sat on an objective.
Yes. Okay. So you put like, was it 4 or 5? 5
Five.
objectives out. You scored a point at the beginning of your turn,
Yeah.
and the deployment was search and destroy. And I really like search and destroy because basically within turn 1 you're amongst each other.
Yeah.
And it just creates carnage, and that's essentially what happened. Like we just met in the middle and kicked absolute fuck into each other. And it was such a great game. I think his name was Scott. Again, I'm sorry,
Scott,
I'm absolutely terrible with names. He's one of the Goonhammer lads.
Yeah. He's done a great article about the Warhammer event, actually.
Yeah.
You can see quite a few pictures of Lee's.
Which we've nicked.
Scott is a great lad. So, yeah.
But yeah, he's been playing Adeptus Titanicus predominantly, and I think he's fairly recently moved into Heresy. And I think from what he was saying, Heresy's now kind of taken over his main gaming. But it was a fucking brilliant game. Again, it was just an awesome game, mega chilled out. There was no bullshit, you know. And I will say now, like I went to a Warhammer World event probably 6 years ago, maybe longer, and I will honestly say it was fucking terrible. I had a really bad experience. I think we played 5 games over a weekend, and 2 of those games were just terrible. It was really clicky. It was like the complete opposite of what you'd have got in the independent scene. And this event was fucking brilliant. Like it was so relaxed. The people that were there, you could just tell no one had come there purely because they wanted to win the event. They were just there to play games and have a laugh. Mm-hmm. And yeah, me and Scott, it was a fucking brilliant game. It was, you know, I killed something, he killed something, I killed something. Like 2 memorable bits. There was one where my Gal Vorbak was in front of his librarian and the Terminator squad he was with. So he was like, oh, fuck this, I'm going to jump him in the Spartan. So then to hide him. So my next turn obviously blew up the Spartan, and then my Gal Vorbak fucking murdered them all. So tried running away and just died tired, basically. And then on one of the other objectives, Kinsar, is it? Whatever his name is. He jumped out of his command squad and hid behind the Land Raider. So my Leviathan blew up the Land Raider, shot down half the Terminator squad, and then he was like, oh, I'm going to charge your Dreadnought. So put a load of shooting into my Dreadnought. My Dreadnought had 1 wound. He charged him with Krinzar, and he's got like an attack that's like an anti-Dreadnought attack, I believe.
Or the horse's mane or whatever it is.
Yeah, so it's
right down the mountain.
So it's strength 8, but it's unwieldy. So I fucking kicked him in the face, and he managed to save it all. So I had 1 wound left. So he hit me with his attacks, and I managed to save them. So we were drawn in combat. And then the next turn, he said, oh, I'm just going to do my normal attacks. And I think he gets like instant death or something. basically
Horse's hooves.
he needed to roll sixes and he didn't, and then I just fucking kicked him across the table. It was fucking brilliant. It was just one of those moments where it was like, oh no, yeah. And this game literally finished, so we had the exact amount of victory points for holding objectives. I'd killed his warlord, but you don't get any points for killing his warlord. He'd killed my warlord, so he got D3, and I'd won attrition, so I got D3. So it literally came down to a roll off to see who would get the highest on a D3 each, and he beat me. I cried. But it was such a good game.
You won the moral victory for booting.
Exactly, 100%, 100%. And I think this is probably one of the first times I've played a standard mission in second edition, because normally at events people are so. I know people kind of complain about playing missions from the book, but it didn't bother me because I do it so rarely. It was actually quite nice.
Yeah.
To do it. But yeah, this was like I say, two fucking brilliant games, like absolute laugh, mega relaxed, like couldn't recommend it enough, like top opponents.
Yeah.
It was
wonderful.
fucking...
Yeah, Jamie did a great job.
Robert, what did you get up to?
So I played World Eaters. I basically should have lost, but didn't. I think it's a great example of when you look at the list, you kind of go, "Whoa, this is a strong list," but it falls apart against close combat armies, which is why I was so worried about Justera getting in, because I think the only weapon skill 5 and 6 I have are from the Dreadnoughts. So 2 Contemptors have weapon skill 5. The leaders, obviously, the HQs obviously have weapon skill 5, but they're not close combat monsters. And then Tenemechras have weapon skill 6. Everything else is weapon skill 4. And the World Eaters basically move so fast, like loads of things that I hadn't realized. So Assault Marine World Eaters get +4 on the charge, and when you just like consider that, I'm in Berserker Assault, and when you consider that, you just like, you know, a 12-inch charge, which seems so impossible, becomes an 8-inch charge, which just seems like, you know, you can totally make that. They move so quick and fast across the table that whatever they touch, they just kind of like destroyed my force. So I think I think he had a couple more objectives than me, but I got attrition and slay the warlord, and he got slay the warlord, so I had an extra roll and then won it on the D3 on attrition, which is always like, you know, fun. But it was a great example of where a close combat army can really decimate my kind of build and what I have. Great opponent over from France, came specifically over from France
to kick your ass with his warrior.
But it was a great opponent, and yeah, lots of like technical questions. You know, we had an interesting one about charges and going in straight lines. We had an interesting one about being able to see a model, but then you know, if that model's sort of 7 inches away, but then there's a closer model that you can't see, which one are you rolling for, etc. So yeah, lots of technical questions that came up, and he was sort of showing me the French version of the rulebook, and I was like, je ne sais quoi.
That's not what you meant.
You know, I just yeah, there are all sorts of things that that came up in that one. And the language barrier is an interesting one, but the gaming was great. Jamie did a great job, and it was just a really relaxed day. So I think that, like, although before the break we were kind of a bit like, oh, this was a bit frustrating, the gaming that we did and Jamie hosting that gaming and the people that we played made our experience a really, really positive.
100%.
That is brilliant. That's super good to hear. Super good.
But we were also, both myself and Lee, put forward for Armies on Parade as well.
Oh,
so
is this something that you were invited to do, or could anyone lay their tit out?
So we and this, I think, actually was one of the best bits about the event. And again, when we looked at that quadrant, this is not something that the average punter kind of experienced at Warhammer Fest. This is only something you would have experienced if you were, you know, playing in the tournaments, right? And I think this is why it's so critical to look at the experience from different people's perspectives, because our experience really differed from other people's experience, even like content creators, right? So Jamie kind of came along early in the day and was kind of like sussing out armies and kind of looking and kind of going, okay, which one's the kind of the best hobby, right? And then later on in the second game, he would come up to you and kind of say that I would like you to put your army on display so it can be judged by the judges. So there was no soft scores, no peer voted. It was done by.
There was no peer vote at all. So there was no like player voted best sports or player voted best army.
So
and that was the same for both days, yeah.
Quite interesting, and because it made the whole vibe of the event really interesting. Because it was like no score sheets, didn't matter who fucking won or lost, didn't matter how well you played it, didn't matter whose shit you pushed in. It was just like dudes playing games. And
lovely. What a vibe.
Because of that, it was so casual, and because of the times, it was so casual as well. But anyway, we then in the second game got asked to put our armies on. Now, this is just a selection of some. This isn't all of them. I think in total there were about 10. There were some with boards. Mark did an amazing one with a board that he brought with knights and things like that. But having the time to go through each person's army and just look at them was just amazing, because also what also started happening is the kill teams were put down on display.
Yeah.
Some of those were fucking amazing. Age of Sigmar started getting put down on display. Warhammer 40k and so you saw some of the best armies in the UK at this event, best painted armies, best hobby, across the UK at this event. And like, granted,
but you wouldn't have got that experience if you just had a general admission ticket. No,
absolutely not. And like, this is not like golden. Like some of the models were Golden Demon standard, but most of them weren't. They were just guys and girls who loved their hobby, loved painting, and had spent lots of time painting their armies and their kill teams and etc. And that, I think, for me was one of the highlights. Like, it was just like girls who, and any other things in between. Like, it was just people who loved their hobby, and it was just on display, and it was magnificent. I thought the kill teams were the best, actually. Like, afterwards, I said to Lee, I was like, man alive, like, I want to do a kill team to like the best of my ability, like not even play, I just thought do it as cracks on. But you got some on display here. The Tom's World Eaters were particularly impressive. I kind of rate them alongside Ollie's in kind of like the style and the level of painting. So definitely worth a follow. And this one, another Word Bearers Force there. Yeah, so it was great, right? But it was voted for by the judges as well. Like, it was quite an intense. There were 4 judges who came along to each army and judged and spent time over each one, looking at conversions, looking at painting, and so it was quite intense. But we also kind of, me and Lee were at the end, were like, well, are they going to announce who's won? And
yeah.
So the announcement wasn't done until Sunday night. So
the Sunday event, was that linked to this one? How did you?
In terms of I think general narrative, I think that.
So you could have played both days, but you didn't have to play both days.
Correct. But also the armies here were also against the armies that were on Sunday. So despite
so there's like 20 finalists essentially.
Exactly, right. So and there was only one winner. There wasn't gold.
And who was that winner, please?
No, go on.
It was me.
Boring. Right, move on.
So you didn't know who you were up against, right? Because there were loads of double players the following day, and I think that was even bigger than the event that we played in. So
cool.
Yeah, it was fucking awesome, but not an experience shared by everybody.
Lee?
Yeah, I mean,
no, I didn't mean that. I meant like go to the next slide.
I was just going to say quickly, this was about the time when people were getting kicked out.
Yeah.
So throughout the day, people could just kind of walk around and watch the tournaments being played and watch games, and we actually had that quite a lot. It was actually really nice. We had some of the patrons come up to us and chatting to us. It was fucking brilliant. Yeah, so it was, and we had one of the guys' dads was like, "Oh, my son's really trying to get me into this. Do you mind if I just sit here and watch?" So one of the dudes just stood there and watched us playing games. So that was quite cool.
Yeah.
But by the time that the army started getting set up was pretty much about the time they started kicking your average punter out. So they may have got to see some of these, but they certainly didn't get to see the full array.
That's a real shame.
Yeah. You're right, John. I think it was a shame, actually.
What did you get up to on day 2 then?
So we, knowing that the kind of like the awards were not going to happen until Sunday, and Jamie would let us know either way, we had felt that we had seen all we had to see. Like, we didn't have a gaming ticket for the Sunday. We didn't do doubles. Our original intention was to stay to do all the things that we hadn't done on the Saturday. But truth be told, we'd done them all in the brief 20 minutes while bouncers were trying to follow us around the event hall and get us out. Literally, like, it was like Dodgems. They were just like following us around. We had Warhammer Fest 20 minutes completed it. Like,
Pretty much.
we didn't play games because I'll play games in my own home. We had a mooch around the store. We saw Golden Demon, and we saw the Leviathan in the cabinet, the Leviathan box set in the cabinets, right? And so we made the executive decision to go, we will only be disappointed if we go back on day 2. We've seen all there is to see. We shall watch the Twitch stream from home. And I think we also were just like, there's 10,000 people or 5,000 people, whatever, who will come on that Sunday. Many of them will be there specific for Heresy. We won't even get in the auditorium. The auditorium started queuing like 2 hours beforehand, and they got to capacity, and there were still people that wanted to get in. So we were just like, we'll just drive back, get to Leeds, watch the Twitch stream there, and I'll drive back on to Reading. That's exactly what we did, and I think we made the right decision about going home.
100%, 100%. Like, I think you got a message off someone, didn't you? And it was an hour and a half before
the 2 p.m. show.
Yeah, and people were already being turned away because they were at max capacity. So they just had to stand in the hall and watch it on the telly.
Yeah.
And we were like, well, if we do that, it goes on for half an hour, an hour. Like, by the time we're leaving, we're not going to get home till fucking late. Yeah. What's the point? We could get home and watch it from the comfort of my sofa. So,
and that's what we did.
I'm so glad we made that decision, because I would have been so bitter if we hadn't. Because a bit of us was thinking, well, maybe they'll change the models out in the cabinets, because that's what they've done previously.
Yep.
So they showed the 40k on the 40k day, maybe because the preview and Heresy stuff, maybe we were thinking like maybe they'll have some of that on show.
Yeah,
because we were thinking maybe they'll
wishful thinking there, Leo.
Yeah, well, it was, but it wasn't in the realms of impossible from
not at all
events. But there was none of that, because we were thinking, well, maybe they'll have the new campaign book out and you can have a flick through it, and there's nothing. There was none of that. So I think Rob got a message again within an hour of the event opening saying it's exactly what everything was yesterday. And so we were just like, we were already like, an hour's, we were a third of the way home, and I was so glad we made that decision.
Yeah.
But again, and I'm really trying not to be negative here, but I can't stress enough that I spent about 20 minutes walking around that building. Like, if I hadn't have been playing those games, I would have been fucking livid. Like, it was purely the tournament and the people that were playing the games and the people that were coming up to us that made that event. It really did. Like, I mean, 20 minutes, madness, isn't it? Like,
it was insane. Like, Lee's spot on, and we absolutely made the right decision. So, although we knocked it, I think you got to call a spade, which was that I actually, there just wasn't enough stuff there, but because of the way that we bought the tickets, and that was the right decision. So I think we'll talk about would we go again in a bit, right? But I definitely have advice for people if they go. So cool. Right, should we have a look at the next thing?
I had a lovely Sunday. So I was different time to us. I was up visiting my in-laws for the weekend with my wife, because we had like a little family event. There's a new little baby in the family, so everyone was there meeting and greeting the baby. And I got a message from Will and Giles, the Merchant Princelings, saying, "Oh, are you up this weekend?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh man, well, we're having a game and a get together at Will's, and then we're going to watch the reveal, and we're meeting at this cafe in Denham at like 10 o'clock tomorrow morning." I was like, "Fucking sweet!" I jumped in the car, drove over to Will's. We went to the cafe, had a delicious breakfast. Went back to Will's. The boys set up a little game. It was Tom, Harry, who you've seen on the channel before, Giles and Will, and then Mike French, who's out fell-handed on Instagram, turned up later on, and we had a game. I painted a Horus Ascended, and a lovely bit of lunch and biscuits, and then we just sat down and watched the reveals. And this is what we got.
And what a reveal, right? This was one of the best.
Yeah, I do genuinely think so.
It was fucking awesome.
I thought it was really good. And I think that overall, there's some people have got some mixed feelings about it. I think there is genuinely like a little bit of like, oh, fucking hell, another Sons of Horus and another Imperial Fist character.
Yeah,
but at the same time,
the
first no, it doesn't affect you at all.
No.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
The first campaign book is Sons of Horus and Imperial Fist, largely. We know now that there are going to be other elements from other legions, which is really cool to explore. We've got a little bit of a kind of a look into the book a little bit more. It's pretty imminent now, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense to have those characters come with. So first things first, we'll talk about the we'll go in a chronological order. Cerastus Knight, do you care? Yes, no, like?
Yes, like
love it. Yeah,
I'm ambivalent to it. I'm glad it exists. Kind of annoyed because I've got a resin one sat in a box. But
yeah.
I think it's going to be right. One thing I would say is that it's a great hobby piece, even if you're not going to play with it.
Absolutely.
Everyone should build a knight and try and paint a knight at some point in their hobby life, because the experience is very different to painting a marine or a tank. And you might find that you go, fuck, I love painting this. I'm now going to paint an allied detachment or a whole army. The hobby experience of painting a knight is a great one.
So we then got obviously a little bit of a look at the book.
Yeah. But Legion Inducti are coming.
Yeah, Inducti are coming.
Yeah.
Everyone's coming, mate. There's going to be some other elements, other legions in there. We're going to get some loyalist Thousand Sons.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. I'm really liking the fact that they are introducing some of the traditional traitor legions with a different allegiance. I think that's quite a nice little touch. Obviously, there'll be a whole raft of new missions in there, plus all of the fleshed out rules for ZM.
Yeah.
So really, really important book.
Yeah.
Thanks, to be honest with you.
So excited. And it's gonna looking at the roadmap, which they also displayed.
We'll talk about the roadmap in a second.
The
book first.
Hopefully it's gonna come out this month. I'm really
I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
I think it makes a good deal of sense. So I'm thinking, Rob, when I come up to yours, maybe I might come up a little bit early and we'll try and get gaming.
Perfect. Yeah, literally. That would be that'd be so good.
Yeah. So then we had the characters from the book revealed. So we've got a new son of a Horus who is like Lord of the Reavers.
Yeah.
Reaver Prime.
Or something.
Yeah, can't pronounce it, didn't bother. So initially I wasn't I was like, oh, he's kind of cool, but kind of a bit weirdly proportioned. I'm not sure I like the axe, if I'm being honest with you. I think I'll swap that weapon out for a different weapon.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think the helmet is really cool. He looks like the younger Bowser from Mario, whose name I can't remember.
It's interesting around the actual armor mark itself as well, right? So that is, in my head, like typically Mark III. It's a stylized version of Mark III.
Yes.
But the whole vibe of it is just screams Mark III. So I haven't got other pictures on, but if you've seen the new Mark III reveals, it looks very different from this, right?
Look at Fafnir Ran and you can see where the design aesthetic is pulled from.
But I think this looks brilliant. I absolutely love it. I would put it on like a little rock or something though, just make him a bit taller.
He needs but I think he'd make a super cool conversion piece as well. I think you'll see him all over the place. However, a guy who will definitely see all over the place is Imperial Fistman.
Yeah.
Lee, what did you think about this when you first saw it?
I've slipped off the sofa, mate. It's fucking
so
brilliant.
Good, isn't it?
So good. Awesome. Love it. Everything about it.
Do you like the splat from the Volkite?
It doesn't bother me because I just cut it off.
I fucking love the underslung Volkite. Is just underslung weapons, pintle mount, like fucking pintle mounted, coaxial mounted weapons. They're things that get me hot under the collar. I think the armor mark is great. I think there's not like super shit. I like the lightning tower on his chest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also think as well, there's not like super tons of like Imperial Fist details that you couldn't kind of relatively easily hack the majority of it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because he's quite armored, but not like mega ornate, I personally think he'll make a great Warsmith.
Yeah.
Big
Yes.
servo arm
Yeah,
coming
yeah,
on the top of his head.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. That's
Not
brilliant.
quite so keen on the cloak. The cloak is kind of quite thick.
I think that's a general trend with.
I think, yeah, I was going to say, I think that's just the way it is now, isn't it?
I don't like it. Anyway,
it'd be interesting. Yeah, I
It's
get
just
what you
not for
mean,
me.
but it doesn't detract from me. I think it looks fucking wicked.
Oh no, don't worry. Like it's still a like an easy 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
No,
I think the
no
Sons of Horus is an
helmet
8, and I think the Imperial Fist is a 9 out of 10 for me personally.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
No bare helmet version of this of the Tyrant of Cathonia though, which is interesting. It's interesting that he is the Tyrant of Cathonia. I would have assumed that the other one was, but he is in fact a fucking.
Why do people think that? Why do people assert Tyrant with such a bad name? That kind of negative connotation.
Yeah, I can't wait to read that part of the book though, like the whole backstory of it. I think.
Yeah, 100%. But why can't there be positive tyrants? That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Then we were treated to the roadmap, which I think, to be perfectly honest, was really great. I like the fact that they've kind of been a little bit ambivalent with time frames. They haven't just said May, June, July, August. It is kind of either sort of in quartile or trifecta. So we've got Evander Garius and the other guy coming in spring, along with the Plastic Vindicator. We're assuming spring means basically now, because June is summer.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's going to have to be kind of now, really. The Lancer is coming along with new characters and upgrades in summer. Again, very ambivalent. Who knows?
Could mean anything.
Could mean literally anything at all. So autumn, more Lords of War. Do we think that means another Sarasta chassis? Do we think that means a Plastodon? Like
I would guess another Knight's coming. I would guess.
Go on, John. Go on.
Yeah, no. I don't think it'll be another Knight, and the reason is because I genuinely don't think that the Lancer is going to sell that well.
Ooh.
Interesting.
But then,
because I think the market for it is pretty slim.
I
think a lot of people that want a Lancer have got a Lancer.
But if they're building it in plastic and it is a Knight, they've been building it from like a year ago, haven't they? You don't just.
I appreciate that. I'm not saying that. I just don't think it's going to be.
No.
I don't think it's going to be jet bike levels or Proteus levels of successful.
So it could be just the arm sprues for the Sarasta.
It could.
Yeah.
And then the other one might be the because it seems to me that it's they're pretty set on the fact that these resin, like the Fellblade, the Baneblade kind of variants are just going to stay as they are. But what's the Solar Orcs tank called for?
The Malkador?
No, not the Malkador. This one with like so many guns on it, right? The Storm
Hammer.
Yeah, it's that. Yeah, it's one of those kind of Baneblade type chassis things, isn't it?
Yeah. So that, or maybe a plastic. Who knows? But it's exciting nonetheless. But we're also getting a new Dreadnought as well, which has got to be the Deredio. Got to be the Deredio, right?
Maybe.
I think it's
a Dreadnought type that's talked about though in some of the novels.
Yeah, I was going to say I've heard rumors that there's a new Dreadnought in the new campaign book.
Yeah.
Probably
a new Dreadnought.
Probably just a fucking radio, but we'll spin the hype.
Armor mark update. Well, we were sort of revealed to at the end that it is revised Mark III. It's featured in the art inside the campaign book. It's clearly been upscaled. It's got new heads. Brilliant. I mean, Mark III is, I think, when we talk about the heresy, it's pretty ubiquitous for a lot of legions. It was one of the most widely used armor marks. You can't necessarily imagine some legions not being in Mark III. Talk about Iron Warriors, talk about Death Guard.
And
talk about Imperial Fists, maybe, but I've seen some cool stuff with Mark VI for them. So
it's to fit and I assume they've done the update in order to fit the support squad weapon, like the weapons. All right,
It's going to be scaled up, beefed up, and if
Right.
you want to know what it looks like, and then look at Fafnir around because he's basically wearing it.
it's basically that, isn't it? Yeah, but basically your support Mark 6 weapons, your plasma cannons, your las cannons, fit. I think we were told will fit this new armor mark.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's all fit together. So no more resin for Mark 3, basically.
No, see you later. It's done. And good riddance, if I'm being honest. A new Primarch. It's going to be Fulgrim.
Easily. Fulgrim. Yeah.
Don't
Serpent,
ask how we know what we know.
what we know. Yeah.
Um,
Is it plastic though, John? This one, or is
that's
it resin?
resin. It says in the
No,
bottom.
it'll be resin.
Oh,
It says at the bottom.
oh,
resin.
it's fucking resin.
It's literally there in front of you.
Why did? Oh my god, it's the same thing like Commander. Fucking hell, it's gonna be a nightmare. Like literally, it's gonna fall apart, shatter into 1,000 pieces. That. How big do you reckon it will be?
Oh, Cabanda money. Hopefully, like 300
You
quid.
reckon?
Fucking do it. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
How big will go home?
I feel like it's got to be kind of Angron size, 40k Angron size. I can't see.
Yeah.
I mean, Angron's somewhere between.
Make him fucking massive. Make him 300 pounds. And make him brilliant.
Massive snake man.
Massive
We'll get
snake
new
man.
rules
Yeah,
for
exactly.
We'll get new rules for him, I presume. A demon.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I can crack on. So winter. Who knows when that's be? Because that could be any time from about sort of October till April in the way that the UK is at the moment. Thanks to these fucking horrible oil companies. So we're getting a mystery army release. Could there be anything more ambivalent than that?
I'm going Sisters of Silence. That's what I think.
Fine. Yeah, absolutely. I think it'll be Imperial Army, but I think it's probably not a good shout. I think System of Science is a much better shout now I've heard it. Or Demons of the Ruinstorm.
Or Demons, right?
Yeah, I would guess Demons of the Ruinstorm. Feels like the obvious choice, doesn't it?
We're finally getting, boys, a entirely new plastic infantry squad. There are the renders below. Mark 6 Assault Marines.
Man.
Thoughts?
I would love to know the timing on this because
Winter Rob, it says right there.
Well, sorry, I mean when they dropped the box set and whether this has been rushed through because they're like, fuck, the demand for it is such that we can sell on.
I don't think so at all. I reckon
they had this in the pipeline.
It's always going to be. It's going to be next. It's going to be the new year. Let's be honest. It's going to be the new year. New characters and upgrades again in Res. You've got to imagine some of these characters and upgrades are going to be maybe some of the missing legions, like Praetors, so like Iron Warriors, Salamanders, etc.
Yeah.
And then next spring, so over an entire year from where we sit now, we're going to get a Legion Command Squad in plastic.
Woo! That's exciting.
Melee weapons in plastic. So you've only got to buy the resin ones for another 14 months. or visit sponsors of the show, Ep23 or Beowulf Miniature Printing to get yours printed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then again, new characters and upgrades. Now, there's nothing to say that this won't change. Nothing to say they won't bring things forward or push things back. We know how things are. We know that, the world could change horribly one way or the other for any particular reason, and that might delay things. So who knows what's going on? But let's, for argument's sake, say they've got. You can kind of tell that the farther away we get from now, the more kind of up in the air it all becomes.
Yeah.
Mystery army release, for instance. I mean, fucking hell.
Essentially, what is that? Yeah.
But
I could be literally anything.
I think that's totally fair because we're our own worst enemies. We asked for a roadmap, and when they don't rigidly adhere to the roadmap, we're all up in arms, fucking crying about. You promised us a fucking.
You promised us a militia PDF 3 weeks ago, and there's not been one here.
And that's the trouble, isn't it? That's the risk they run. They tell us what's coming, and then we cry when it's not out.
Oh no, it's
embarrassing. So we know we have a rough idea of stuff that's coming. It's cool, but they've given themselves a bit of wiggle room. I think it's fucking brilliant.
Oh, I'm looking forward because I've got to paint a loyalist Zone Mortalis force for an event in June, and I happen to have enough Cataphractic Terminators and Storm Shields to do an entire Imperial Fist army. So I'll have an Imperial Fist ZM army ready to go alongside my Sons of Horus army ready to go just in time for the book. So I'm pretty fucking happy, all being told. Right, and then finally, Heresy related at the very end of the reveal, they teased Epic.
Yeah.
Epic's coming. We knew it was coming, but Epic's coming.
Yeah.
So personally, like, I know, Lee, you were super excited by it, correct?
I was, but I'm less excited now just because there's been so much fucking awesome heresy stuff coming out.
Perfect.
You
I
know,
will almost certainly buy the Epic box, and it will almost certainly sit unloved for 8 months.
literally,
That's right. Yeah.
yeah.
Look, it's
Exactly the
it's
same.
no spoiler for anyone to hear, but I am incredibly keen on the old world. Have been for years. Like it, I genuinely, and the fact of the matter is, like, I'm binning off everything. All the other stuff that isn't fantasy or heresy related is just going on eBay or going in the bin in the moment. So I can't think about anything else. I've got no more room in my brain for a third game system, especially one in fucking miniature.
Yeah.
But that being said, like, it could be the fact that you could, with painting an army for fantasy now in comparison, the last army I painted for Warhammer Fantasy, I think, was in about 2000, and I want to say 2002, maybe 2003. No, 2004 it would have been, because I was drinking at the time. 2004. And painting that now against painting back then, oh man, like night and day. Airbrush, this, that, and the other, a little bit of an oil here and there, a few bits and bobs, bomb, done. See you later. So perhaps I could paint an Epic box.
Awesome.
Truth be told, I think Epic will entirely depend on if other people pick it up and if I get swept along in it, because I can't manufacture hype for other people because I'm not really that hyped about it.
I personally feel like Epic is kind of how the heresy should be played. Like the big battles.
Don't disagree with you, to be honest with you.
You know, sprawling fucking massive armies.
Yeah.
Kicking fucking to each other. But I'm the same as you. If no one else picks it up, then I'll still buy it.
You know, it's like if 12 people who I know and give a shit about buy it, I will definitely buy it. But I'm never going to be the conduit for that hype.
Yeah, exactly the same.
Cool. Right. What's next?
That's I think
so. These are our final thoughts. So we talked about this earlier and talked about what did people expect and what were you going to get if you were these people. If you were fit into one of these 4 boxes that you've created, Rob, what do you think you got out of this event?
So if you're an average attendee, the answer is not a lot, or you're able to socialize, right? So I think that lots of people walked away kind of being like, I had a good time because I got to see all my friends, or I had a good time because I got to see this person from YouTube. And that's absolutely fine, because there were loads of people from the wider Warhammer community that were there, that people kind of like know and love. And so if that's how you get your kicks, that's absolutely fine, and you had a great time. If you're more like me and Lee, who kind of know some people from like YouTube videos, but don't really aren't avid fans, then it was unlikely that we would kind of go up to those people. So we wouldn't have been able to get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
So I think it was a kind of, if you were just an average attendee, not there to socialize, it was like a 2 out of 10. If you got to see all your best mates, then it was probably like a 5 or a 6 out of 10, right? But to be honest, like, bottom line is there wasn't enough to do at Warhammer Fest, and that created queues and that created problems. If you're a gamer like me and Lee, I think you had a fucking brilliant time. Like, you were living your best fucking life, because
because playing games is the best bit, right?
For me, it is the best bit. Like, and seeing those armies on display that the average attendees didn't see, like, that was like a highlight. Being like escorted by bouncers around the event while they're trying to shut up, we were just like, fuck that. You know, we were honestly living our best lives. It was fantastic. Yeah, it was great.
Agreed.
Lee, what if you're a Golden Demon entrant? How do you think you would have felt?
I think, I mean, I'm not really a massive fan of the Golden Demon, but I know people who do it avidly every Golden Demon, and I feel like they have an amazing time. I feel like with Golden Demon, you could put them in a warehouse in the middle of the desert and they'd all still have an amazing time, because they're looking at awesomely painted models. So I think if you were a Golden Demon entrant or I think the downside of that is it was so hard to see the Golden Demon models.
Yep.
Like that's the downside. Like if you've spent 6 months painting a model, you want people to see your model. You know, and there were like when we did get a chance to have a look around it, and I can't stress enough how much these people were trying to kick us out, and we were just like, "Fuck you," we're having a look.
Yeah.
Because we'd been there 2 or 3 times during the day, and you just couldn't get near it. You just couldn't. There was too many people. Like some of the best entrants for me were the ones that were never going to place. They're ones that aren't necessarily the best technically painted, but they were just fucking fun, or they were brilliant, or they were really clever ideas. There was one which was like they were like sprues, like boxes of bits that had been cut off sprues, and servitors were like painting them and building them.
Yeah. So they had like a bare plastic like version.
Yeah, so it goes from like a blank plastic to being a fully made painted model. Like it wasn't technically the best painted model. It was never gonna win a Slayer sword, but it was just a really cool, fun idea. And they're the ones you won't see pictures of on the Warhammer community fucking things they send out. So I do think that's a shame. It's hard because you've got tiny little models and lots of people want to see them.
Yeah, that's always going to be a difficult one. Like, how do you?
It's hard
to deal with it.
But I do feel like I've not had that much problem at previous events I've been to, because again, it comes back to what we said. We said it before. If there's more stuff to do, you don't have as many queues. That's just fucking facts, isn't it? So.
Yeah.
So I think, if you're a Golden Demon entrant, you probably had a fucking amazing time, meeting all your painting buddies, but probably a little bit disheartened that not everyone got to see your stuff.
Cool. That's, I think, pretty fair.
Yep.
Rob, what about if you're a content creator? How do you think you enjoyed the event?
Yeah, so I think that, again, you were probably living your best life because you make things for the internet. So your interaction with people, except through messages or YouTube comments and things like that, your interaction is fairly low. So meeting your fans in the flesh and them being like, I absolutely love the stuff you do, and you being like, tell me about the hobby and your journey and what's your Instagram handle. That you will probably again living your best life because you get to meet people who love your work, and you are just like you just buzz in off that, right? Because people, Pete the Wargamer is a great example where people might be like, I did this conversion, like let me show you, and Pete's like, whoa, this is absolutely amazing. You did a great job, well done. So I think that you're probably living your best life, but I think again I would reiterate the content creator experience was different from the average attendee. So, and I think always beware that Games Workshop have given them a different experience if they signed their NDA. I think like if you've not seen it, I don't know if you lads have seen it, but Midwinter's minis, is that what the guys called with glasses, got Maverick paints on to do like a little podcast for like 2 hours, and they were kind of like classed as content creators. I think they got passes, but they didn't sign an NDA before.
Oh, nice.
And they went along to this evening event because everybody was like, hey, we'll see you at the evening event, but that's just for the content creators hosted, and we get to do whatever we want to because we have the hall to ourselves. And they were like, oh, wow, this is amazing. We didn't realize this was going on. They turned up, and then Games Workshop kicked them out because they were like, you haven't signed an NDA, so
I did speak to Maverick about that actually, and he was considering he had traveled an awful long way from the continental United States. I think he was maybe slightly aggrieved. Understand.
And so that was interesting. But I think that I feel always really strongly that you need to have something like hashtag ad or pay partnership or an acknowledgement that you receive something different from a company that you are doing work for, or you get a different experience from, because I think it's unfair when you have such, and like to be honest, like I saw a pay partnership label from Tabletop Taxis, so they did what they need to do, but I think that you have a responsibility as a content creator to make it clear that you receive something different to what average.
I agree. So on the evening of the Monday, I asked for feedback from people on Instagram. So I put up a little poll, and I was surprised by how many people responded to it, who clearly had been, and secondly, how many people sent me feedback, which they have agreed to share and that I can share anonymously. Yeah. So of the poll that I put up, I asked if people thought the event was bang tidy or bang average.
Yeah.
And of the 84% of people that's replied, 12% said it was bang tidy, and the remaining 88% said that it was bang average.
Jesus.
And of those people that responded, I think it was I think it was 9 people that responded that they thought it was good have some degree of association with GW, be it typically through receiving review copies of miniatures.
Okay. And I think that says it all right. I think that's just
absolutely. So I will read you some of the excerpts and other feedback that I was sent. Now, all these people have said there's nobody that is in any way affiliated with Games Workshop here, by the way. It's all stuff that I've received anonymously and have requested the ability to talk about. So the first one was the queues and organization were absolutely shocking.
Yep.
Couldn't believe there were no black library or designers.
Yep.
The main hall was filled with demos of annoying mobile games. Just frustrating. Totally wasted space.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, I agree with that.
This was someone responding to a comment that I put up. In fact, somebody responding to a comment somebody else put up. The comment originally was, it seems as if people rarely struggle to learn from the mistakes, especially GW when it comes to these events. They make the same mistakes time and time again. Someone responded, they do keep selling out, so I'm not sure what mistakes they're actually making.
Valid.
I think that is a comment.
Yeah, it's fair enough, isn't it?
Yep. My counter to that would be that it's okay to give people second, third, fourth chances to see if they can match your expectations.
Yeah, but definitely as well. And as long as you see, I think, some degree of improvement, happy days, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there's nothing like, I think when we talk about if we would go again next year, or if one of us ends up going next year, or if something like happens next year, I think that what we would want to see is no one's going to turn up expecting it to be perfect.
Yeah.
Right? Because perfect doesn't really exist. It's a construct.
No.
But you'd want to see some degree of improvement upon what's happened.
Correct.
This year. Okay.
I mean, there will be people going to that who absolutely love the computer games and mobile app games.
Absolutely.
They'll be saying this was fucking amazing because this is the most.
I got to play Bolt Gun, the new Bolt Gun game.
You know, so experiences differ, don't they?
Absolutely, 100% right. The event was still fun. I enjoyed myself quite a bit, but it just needs improvement.
Yeah.
Cool. Haven't had this much fun at a Warhammer event in a long time. The quality is amazing.
There you go. Counter argument.
Yeah, this was a particularly good bit of feedback. This was my first fest, and I think you make of it what you can.
Yeah.
I see some people say they didn't get to see the cabinets, but I've actually seen loads. It's asking a lot to presume there will be no one around at a point. Yeah. But there are gaps where you can join or just queue like I did. I do, however, wish there were more demos of actual games.
Yeah. Fair. Nothing you can really say about that. That's fair. Like if you accept that you have to wait a very long time, then
make of it what you will. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I think
that also depended on what day you went. I think the Saturday was like the most horrendous, and then come Monday there was like 5 people and their dog.
Yeah. I didn't expect much from an official GW event, and yet it was still lower than I expected.
That's fucking amazing. Rob, did you write that in?
I wish I had. Fuck me.
Yeah. The Titan Owners Club was really cool, but the lack of artists and authors is a real shame.
Yeah.
It seems that these sorts of talents have been replaced by the influencers. I don't want to be completely negative because I enjoyed parts and meeting new people, but I would agree that the weekend ticket probably wasn't worth the money.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And we didn't say about the Titans Owners Club because they were there, I think, on the Sunday. And we've seen them at the Greens from the Warp event, and it's always super impressive. Their love for the Legio is strong. But they're not. I assume they're not getting paid, right? Like Games Workshop's being like, "Well, come along," and they're one of the attractions, and it's like, well. You can you're basically like taking away like the paid element of it and just getting these guys to come along and fill your hall for you basically, but they probably don't feel that way. So
Yeah, the last one was overall, the event was a big disappointment for me. Reminiscent of the final, brackets disastrous, games day before the move to Warhammer Fest.
Mm.
Bought a 3-day ticket, managed to get in by 9 a.m. Saturday, and was completely done by 10.
Yeah.
Didn't,
Yeah.
didn't bother with the shoppers. 2.5 hour queues are just ridiculous, and couldn't get anywhere near the Golden Demon cabinet as a result of the queues. The lack of studio presence was ridiculous. Limited access to seminars that you can watch on Twitch for free at the same time just left me wondering what exactly did I pay for.
Yeah, fair play.
Unfortunately, that's how it continues to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
I think we need to now ask the big question, which is, I think on the next slide, Lee. Would you go back? Lee,
would you go back?
So, I kind of have two answers to this. So
yes and no, I'm guessing.
The last time I went to a Warhammer World event, I told myself I would never go back to a Warhammer World event ever again because I had such a bad experience.
Yeah.
Having gone to the tournament that was played at Warhammer Fest, I would 100% attend a Warhammer World event again. As in,
okay, good. So this has rehabilitated your love for going to official.
Absolutely, it was a fucking 1,000 times better than what I've experienced previously.
That's fantastic news. That's really, really good.
In terms of the Warhammer Fest itself and what open days, game days, I'm kind of 50-50 to be honest. I would possibly go back, but I would go with the lowest of expectations.
Yes.
That, as long as I didn't get kicked in the nutsack going in, it would probably be okay. So if I had to travel to Manchester to do it again, I probably wouldn't go. No. Yeah. If they did one in Birmingham or in Nottingham, I would be 50-50 to go because it's closer to where I live.
Yeah.
But so would I go to a Warhammer Fest in Manchester again? No.
Okay.
No.
Rob?
I would only go if I bought a one-day ticket and also a tournament ticket. I think it's unless you're entering Golden Demon, I think it's unnecessary in its current format to buy a weekend pass.
Good. I think that's really good feedback. And look, I do want to reiterate that we talked an awful lot in the run-up to the show. It's kind of why we didn't record it earlier in the week. I think because we wanted time to be reflective. Yeah. To gather feedback from other people that we know that did attend and people that we know who have some degrees of affiliation. But we wanted to try and kind of let the dust settle a little bit and be a bit more reflective and a bit more rounded. And I still feel like we've ended up being overwhelmingly negative, which was never the intention. But unfortunately, that does kind of really show that we're trying to sort of be constructive. But at the same time, we have sort of bitched about how shit it was.
I feel like I can't
playing games, which is brilliant, right? When was the last time you went to a Heresy event and you came away thinking I've not had a good time? Obviously,
it just doesn't happen. Yeah, it doesn't happen. Apart from Warhammer World 6 years ago, just from these perspectives. Lee, you're about to say something. Sorry.
Yeah, I can't stress enough that I did have an awesome time. Like, I know we have been very negative about the event, but Jamie did an awesome job, especially given that it appeared that he didn't have a huge amount of support.
Yeah, I think it was on him.
Running, yeah, and he was running, one of the largest Heresy event I've ever been to. I had an amazing time, but I had an amazing time because of the people who were there and because I was playing games. If you'd got rid of the whole Warhammer Fest, if you'd got rid of that half of the event, I would have still had just as good a time. Like that was almost like just a little bit of a distraction. I got to see the Indomitus models, like they're fucking amazing. I got to see some of the Golden Demon stuff. It was amazing. That was it. That was literally it. So I had an amazing time, but it wasn't because of the Warhammer Fest.
Well, to give you an idea, looking at the costs, so I've booked a ticket to go to Malmo this year.
Yeah.
And I think that my flights and accommodation and my ticket is going to come in at about 265 quid.
There you go.
Yeah.
So you got a holiday, right?
And I'm going to Copenhagen for a day beforehand and then spend 3 days in Sweden and then fly home.
And you'll have a great time. Yeah,
I'll have a great time because I'm going to be with 70 odd players playing Heresy.
Yeah.
So,
interesting.
Anyway, look, well, but talking about events, have we went out with one or two tickets left for some stuff? Have we got anything that still needs to go?
No,
It's
all gone. All gone.
Right,
All
okay.
gone.
I promise, and I have been saying this for about 2 weeks to the guys, that we've got a date booked in for my event, which is the 30th of September / 1st of October.
That's correct, yeah.
I've got a pack. I just need to do the marketing material, and those tickets will go live next week. I promise, beginning of the week. We'll try and get them out for Monday, which will be the 8th of May, as you hear this for Patreon. So, as not always, patrons will have 24-hour priority access to the tickets, and everything will go on general sale. But we'll email all everyone on the Patreon with the link when tickets go live. Yeah, and with further ado, we need to give some thanks to some people. The firstly, our long-term sponsors, Cryptic Cabin. As always, if you want to buy any plastic toy soldiers for your Heresy armies, then contact Cryptic Cabin. Use the code Heresy Hammer or follow our link in the show notes on the description below, and you can get some money off and give us a bit back. Robert, painting, what's going on? Talk to us about some courses you've got coming up, correct?
Yeah, so next month I've got a basing course, which was enormous fun when I last did it. We've got about, I think, 7 attendees plus myself. Lunch is included. Tickets are £65. But you'll need to pay an Eventbrite fee, so it's more like £70. It's really good if you want to up your basing. I will take you through kind of using weathering powders. We'll also do a little bit about weathering tracks as well. We will look at constructing those bases using crackle paints. We'll look at different kind of paints from Ammo and Games Workshop and AK in terms of texture. We will look at also constructing our own jungle type bases as well, and I will bring all of the latest basing kits from Ammo have created that they've sent me along, so you can take a look and use those as well to your heart's content. So if you want to up your basing and you're kind of like, oh, my basing's a bit boring, this is the course for you. It's a great day. Boards and Swords, fantastic venue, and lunches included. So
it really is.
It
really is a great venue and a great course. You should 100% get on it.
Yeah, and then the Kratos one sold out. That sold out in summer. So that's in the summer, and it sold out within minutes. 12 tickets.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
so many top tier Kratos are gonna be kicking around. Best get those heavy support squads ready, guys.
Yeah.
Bits Monster, again, if you don't need to buy entire plastic kits, you just want bits of kits, as I desperately need to do at the moment to top up some bits that I've lost, then head over to Bits Monster. You can find them on Instagram at bits.monster. Same thing on Facebook too, or just visit the store directly at bitsmonster.com. For all your bits and pieces, whether it be 40k, whether it be Heresy, whether it be a mixture of stuff. Free UK shipping over 25 quid, and the international shipping rates are really reasonable as well.
Yeah.
And if you use the code Heresy Hammer at checkout, you get extra 10% off everything Heresy related. She's fucking bargainers.
Absolutely awesome.
What if you need some stuff 3D printing? Like my wife wants me to get a tiny miniature trumpet 3D printed for her. For some unbeknownst reason. Then head over to somebody like Dan at Gated 3D. So he is at Gated 3D and Gated 3D Printing on Facebook. Or you can contact Beowulf Miniature Printing. So both print and demand services, a different range of products from both. So it's not like everyone's going to have all the same stuff. Yeah, just super quality, super efficient, super fast, super good delivery. Just, yeah. You need some bits that you can't get from elsewhere. Get them printed by these guys.
Cool.
And then the Patreon Roll of Honor, our favorite bit of the show. So, firstly, thank you to all the patrons. Reason that we can be critical of people is because we are editorially independent, and the reason is because we don't get freebies from anyone. So we thank everyone for their support. Quick run of the Patreon. So we have you can subscribe to Patreon for as little as £3. For that, you get 2 extra tactical in-depth shows that we do every month, plus all of our event materials that we produce are all freely available to use. So all the missions, all the packs, all the cards, all the downloads, all the everything is all up on there. You get access to the Facebook group, the Heresy Hammer Lodge. And you get things like early access to event tickets. £5 gets you all of the above, plus the ability to potentially win a console painted by one of us. We're going to draw the next one at the end of this month. The first one is, the oils are literally drying on it as we speak, and then it's ready to go off to its new owner. And I got the luxury of painting the new Death Guard Praetor, who is fucking lovely model, genuinely, really good. And then our top tier, who are these gentlemen and ladies here. These are our Praetors, who get swag for free. Now, the swag is done every 6 months. We've sent the first out last month, so it's basically, but you haven't got to be subscribed like over a period. It's just when you hit 6 months, we send you some free stuff out. The next 6 months, we send you some more free stuff out. The next exciting thing that we have got coming for the swag, which we are super excited about, is our friend Wilf, who is at Diverging Realm on Twitter, Instagram, maybe Twitter as well. Who knows? Yeah. Who is genuinely one of the best 3D sculptors in the business at the moment. Has got a huge following on Patreon. Has just released an incredible Terminator kit. He's creating a custom siege breaker for us for our next round of Praetor level patrons. It will only be available from us as a physical kit, so there's not going to be an STL you can print at home. We will be supplying the prints through our printing partners. You'll only be able to get it by joining the Patreon. So if you want a super special custom siege breaker that nobody else apart from these people here is going to have, then head over to patreon.com.
And it will have options, right? We've commissioned Wilf to create it with options.
Options. It is, we are super excited about this. But also as well, like, we really appreciate the support. We don't obviously, we put a lot of time and effort into this. And if you can support the show for as little as £3 a month, it would be really, really appreciated. And we might even use some of that money to buy you a beer at the next event we see you at. Okay, right. So without further ado, and in no particular order, these are the Roll of Honours. These are our Praetor level patrons. Ethan Bruhl, Big T Painting, Callum Falcus, Clayton Unruh, WH_ Black Panzer, Craig the Celt, Kevin Abramo, Nicholas Drax, Andrew G, That Guy Lazar, Saigon Sadler, Chris Levitt, Julien, Mark Ainsworth, Dale Barrett, William, Bill the Destroyer.
Well, that is not Bill the Destroyer, the one that we know. That is a pesky Ian Parker.
Is that Ian Parker?
Oh, Bill the Destroyer. I checked the emails today and was like, that a crafty little bastard.
Because I saw that Will had subscribed to the Patreon, I thought, clearly, being a man of such means, he would have subscribed at the top tier.
No, this is in fact Ian in disguise.
Was this previously Old World Death of Heresy?
That's exactly who it
Correct,
was. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
But who knows what's going to be on the next episode?
He knows what side his bread's buttered on, doesn't he? Alex Robinson, Tom Spear, Aaron, who's Hammer Nails 40k, Rich Harris, Josh, the Chthonic Water Beast, Simon Whitehouse, Peter King, Ashley Bowley, Pete Day, Al, Randy Overland, Igor Povolotsky, Bradley Slute, Patrick Greenstreet, Cody Sivertson, Mike Dorset Wolf, Richard Willis, Tom Hayward, Neil Atherton, Ben Robinson, Walter Cook the Fourth, Ben Ide, Matt, who's Gorkrow, Lupicalia EX, John McCardle, and Thomas Silverstone. Now, everybody who is subscribed there and at the champion £5 tier, please keep your eyes and ears peeled to your inbox towards the end of the month, because we will be drawing the next console, and it will be painted by either Rob or Lee.
Well, it's definitely going to be painted by me, isn't it?
Correct.
We will get it out to you quickly. No doubt.
Right. I think, gentlemen, that's us done.
That is
cool.
So, quickly, next slide, the last one, please, Lee. So, don't forget to submit all of your tut that you do on Instagram and tag us at #HeresyHammer. We love featuring them. We love looking through them. It's one of the best parts of putting the show together, is going through all of the submissions. Please like this video, subscribe, because it costs nothing. Comment and share it amongst your friends, especially if they wondered if they should bother going to Warhammer Fest next year. If you've got any suggestions for shows, anything you want to know, anything you want to talk to us about, and if you want to disagree with and you don't want to kind of comment publicly on YouTube, then drop us an email.
We have got lists. We have received a couple of lists that we are.
And we have got some lists, yeah. But we
we
knew this was going to be a bit of a bumper show, so we're going to do some lists on the next show when we've got less to talk about. And obviously, please, if you've got a few spare shekels in your pocket, give them to us. And you can do that by going to Patreon and searching Heresy Hammer or patreon.com/Heresy Hammer. I think we're now in the top 20, I believe 25 Warhammer related patrons on Patreon now. So we're really
big deal, right? That's a big deal for our little.
And we really thankful to everybody who continues to support us. So yes, big love. Right, gentlemen, say goodbye.
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 Bye-bye.